Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Happy to have you with us. Love to hear from you today. I got a bunch of questions out on the Twitter polls at Real OC Sports, 877-353-0700 if you want to get a hold of me on our Dish Pros text line. Our show today and every day brought to you by friends at Les Schwab Tires. The tires, the wheels, and accessories that you need for whatever you drive are there at Les Schwab, and the pros will get the job done right the very first time. So anything you got going on with the car, take it to Les Schwab. All right, a lot going on in the sports world here in Salt Lake City. Hockey, little Four Nations break, okay? I have told you my feeling about the Four Nations situation. I think anytime you get an opportunity to represent your country as a player, even on the pro level, this is meaningful and significant to all of these individuals. I feel bad that Clayton Keller got snubbed and was not included in the Four Nations rosters. This is a fun little thing, and I think one of the many opportunities that the NFL maybe has to fix its All-Star Weekend, its Pro Bowl, whatever you want to call it, would be to do something like this. Obviously, you're not doing Four Nations with NFL players or with football, American football, but you could split it up regionally and make it more of a pride situation for guys. But every idea that I've thrown out there and run by NFL people or people who know anything about the NFL is always like, yeah, but they won't actually care. They won't actually like it. So maybe you just abandon it altogether. Fun situation last night is the Utah Jazz participated in kind of like the most significant regular season game of the NBA year. I guess you could make a case for Oklahoma City and Boston squaring off in a regular season contest or one of these Cleveland versus Boston matchups. But from an interest standpoint, the Utah Jazz got to, again, play a part in the most significant moment of the NBA regular season to date, as after the trade deadline, after the big blockbuster, Luka finally made his LA Lakers debut. And it happened to be while the Jazz were in town visiting.
Yeah.
So not only did the Jazz help facilitate the trade as the little footnote, as the participant who got some cash consideration, some contract situations figured out, and then, of course, second-round picks, which is all they really compiled before the trade deadline expired. Now they get to be the team that plays against the Lakers. And unfortunately for the Jazz, what you're looking for this year, or what you actually realistically can get this year, is these little participation trophies. If you're a dyed-in-the-wool, hardcore Utah Jazz fan, this probably just twists the knife for you, that your team is out there and everyone's watching the game, but nobody's watching the game because of your team. John Collins, 17 points. Lauri Markkanen, 17 points. Walker Kessler had 13. Jordan Clarkson, 16. Isaiah Collier, 13. Your starting lineup gave you just like an even distribution. It was the most boring and vanilla version of Utah Jazz basketball than you're going to get. No standout performances necessarily. Nothing super spectacular on either end. Walker Kessler once again looked great as a rebounder, as a defensive presence. And, you got a nice little contribution off the bench from Johnny Juzang, but ultimately, not to the chagrin of Jazz fans, to the smiles of Jazz fans, you lost this game by 19 points to the Lakers. A Lakers team that was very much the focus of the NBA media, the NBA itself, players around the NBA who were not active last night. Everyone wanted to know what it would look like when Luka slapped on an LA Lakers jersey and actually played for this team. He gave you 24 minutes. He didn't shoot well. He was not himself. He was well below his averages, both for the season and his career averages against the Utah Jazz. 5 of 14, 1 of 7 from 3, and finished the game with 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 14 points. So a pedestrian performance, a substandard performance by the lofty Luka Doncic standards, but the Lakers win anyway. LeBron in 29 minutes gave you 24 points on 10 of 17 shooting. And that's the debut. That's the rollout that you get. Pretty underwhelming, if we're being honest. Pretty like, ho-hum. if we're being honest. And the Laker fans, the fans at Crypto.com Arena wanted so desperately to see some like breakout performance. I promise you're going to get it from Luka. At some point, you're going to get it. It was interesting to hear the analysis on the game, whether you're watching the national feed or the Jazz feed with Bowler and Big T, kind of putting into context what that situation is for Luka right now. Not only does he have to, like the housing situation, you got to figure that out after he just closed on a $15 million mansion in Dallas. You got to restart that whole home search project in LA. Of course, they're putting him up in some nice digs in the meantime. But you got to get to know your teammates a little bit. You've got to figure out what your relationship with LeBron James is. And I think that's the most important thing here for Luka when it comes to the team and the roster and the chemistry standpoint. You got to sort of feel out the process with J.J. Redick, and the opposite is also true. Because J.J. Redick is a respected veteran player who got the job as Lakers head coach because LeBron James decided he should be the Lakers head coach. And I'm not listening to any argument against that, right? I don't think there is any argument against that. It's not like Luka is required to automatically be like, okay, anything that this coach says, I absolutely am going to take as gospel truth. Now, he might want to index in that direction because there is this idea that Luka is not as professional as he needs to be. And if you want to be a consummate pro, you're supposed to be coachable, and you've got a guy who played the game for a long time, shot the ball extremely well for his entire career as your head coach, and then, of course, you've got this generation's GOAT as your teammate now. And you have to figure out where you fit in that as a rising superstar in the league, as a guy who had already established himself somewhere else as unequivocally the number one dude, unequivocally the alpha in that locker room. Even if you were being, a good teammate and deferring to the older, more experienced guys on certain things, maybe on being vocal, whatever. Now, for the first time, I don't know since when, since he was 17, Luka has to kind of be like, is it cool if I do this? He didn't have to ask that question to himself or to anyone else when he was in Dallas. So I think that's part of the reason why he didn't play all that well. Also, it's an 82-game season. There's a lot going on with the whole trade situation. Expecting him to show up and give you a 40-point performance probably wasn't realistic. But the Laker fans wanted it. Every time he touched the ball, you would hear this little pop from the crowd, and then, as most of his three-pointers clanged off the rim. Seeing LeBron and Luka on the floor together playing for the same team was interesting because I don't know how well it's going to work out. On paper, those two guys together, especially if they can figure out it sounds like there's an appeal happening with the trade that was nixed between Charlotte and the Lakers, and maybe eventually they do get like a bona fide 7-foot center that can help the efforts, not just of beating teams like the Utah Jazz, but of competing with the best teams in the West for this Lakers squad. What the product you saw last night was not the final product of what this is going to be. And I think, again, the announced teams did a great job of being like, hey, here, you see, what the situation you're seeing here is that they're just putting Luka in an offensive set where he gets to be the decider. You put the ball in his hands, and he's going to either try to create his own shot or facilitate for somebody else, because he cannot be expected to know the ins and outs of what the Lakers offense wants to be right now. And I guess it's probably part of why he makes his debut against the Utah Jazz team that is a little bit under-talented right now, is not really trying to win these games. And it's the right situation for Luka to be in.
Yeah, and to your point, OC, is like it's a big culture change from going from Dallas to LA. It's a different play style. LeBron's over there, obviously.
I mean, that's the biggest factor.
Yeah.
The culture change is now you're in the LeBron James culture. Now you're playing for a franchise that is headed by LeBron James. And maybe that's a good thing for other players. Maybe that's a great thing for a young player who's expressed his admiration for LeBron at every single opportunity, even long before they were teammates. I mean, Luka has always been like so many young guys in the NBA, so many young people around sports and in basketball specifically in general, where you're just like, well, LeBron is probably Luka's GOAT. Luka didn't get to watch. He's 25 years old.
Yeah.
He didn't watch Michael Jordan in his prime. Like, never mind that he's from Slovenia. He did not get to see Michael Jordan at his very best. So there's no context probably for somebody like Luka to judge anyone besides LeBron James as the greatest of all time in the game. And there's certainly an argument for it. There's always arguments against it. But now that guy's your teammate and kind of your de facto GM and kind of your de facto head coach. And that is a massive culture change. But again, on paper, especially if they can figure out the center situation, this to me looks like something that extends the shelf life of LeBron James as a dominant factor in the playoffs potentially, and certainly sets Luka up for a better example to follow, as we talked about when this trade came down last week. So as I was thinking about these things, watching the game, trying to be like, oh, this Utah Jazz team, what can they do to like narrow the gap between where they're at right now and a Lakers squad that is far from perfect and certainly not the best team in the West right now, but is light years competitively ahead of where the Utah Jazz are. And it goes back to that old cliche, it's the Jimmies and Joes. You just have to have better personnel. They battled like they do. They showed the competitiveness like they do. Lauri Markkanen, despite shooting very poorly from distance last night, again showed in several situations, especially in the first half, why you love Lauri Markkanen so much. Following up his own shots, getting his own rebound, being a presence down low, and being able to extend things most of the time out beyond the typical big man's range. Like, all of that is evident every time you watch Lauri Markkanen in this Utah Jazz team, but it's just an island. It's like this glowing beacon of hope in an otherwise kind of stormy sea of there's just not enough out there for the Utah Jazz. And there's maybe not enough out there for the LA Lakers either, but there's certainly a more interesting story right now, and why everyone in the NBA was tuned in to the game last night, and why Twitter was blowing up with conversation about a game that the Jazz were participating in as like they were the who's the Globetrotters opponent every dang week, that it was like the Generals or the Colonels or something like that. That's what the role the Utah Jazz filled last night. But when you see LeBron James and Luka given an opportunity to squad up, it begged for me the question whether they turn out to be a dynamic duo or dynamic dud. Like, on paper, it looks like, wow, these two guys put together could be a big problem for teams in the NBA. So the roster, the collection of talent, the team up, the Batman and Robin that you thought was going to work out so well, but didn't. 877-353-0700. Maybe there's a roster in football this year. I mean, look, the San Francisco 49ers are a good example of this, where the collection of talent there, you have a top 3 running back. You have a top 1 or 2 in the league left tackle. You have a top 1 or 2 in the league middle linebacker. You have a top 3 pass rusher. You have a top 4 tight end. You have a top 1 Swiss Army knife type player with Deebo Samuel. Have all these things, this collection of talent, and then, of course, injuries and other factors made it so none of that worked out. That was perhaps the most disappointing collection of talent in the NFL this year. On paper, should have been great. Unfortunately, we're not. For you as a sports fan, what's the one? And you can go back as far as you want. You can look at whatever sport you want and tell me the one that just it made no sense, that it turned out to be such a dud for you. I mean, in the NBA, there's plenty of examples. Like when Dwight Howard and James Harden were teamed up together, that should be, you've got a guy who can play and dominate on the perimeter, and you've got a guy whose presence down low during his era was pretty much unmatched because Shaq had gone over the hill for the bulk of Dwight Howard's career. And yet, together, they didn't really accomplish much. 877-353-0700. You want to send me a text, or you can shoot it at me at Real OC Sports. Just something I got to thinking about last night as I'm watching that game with Luka and LeBron. the little shimmy shake over Walker Kessler to get the scoring started for Luka, but he had his career numbers against the Jazz, 27, 8, and roughly 8. And last night he only basically did half of that in 24 minutes. And of course that can lead you to, well, what's as you were thinking about these dynamic duds, the team ups in sport that never really translated despite multiple all-stars on the same team, or despite multiple all-pros on the same team, or big-time talents on the same team. What's the missing ingredient when those guys don't turn out to be great teammates? When Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving teaming up together for Brooklyn don't deliver you anything of import. When Allen Iverson and Carmelo Anthony can share a court together consistently and not deliver you a championship, while both of those guys as individual alpha dogs either won championships in the college game, at least for Carmelo, or like got so close. What is the missing ingredient when the Sixers team that had Joel Embiid and was trusting the process never got what they needed? Every Paul George team ever. Like, what is the missing ingredient?
Yeah, I was going to say the Nets, when they had Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant, and it still didn't work out.
Yes.
I was like, that's what I was thinking about too. Is like, there's some of those squads like Russell Westbrook and James Harden. When James Harden was still in the Rockets, like that didn't work out either.
I mean, the NBA is the best example because we always talk about the influence that individual talents, that all-star level guys, you have to have. Now in the NBA, you have to have a big three for the most part.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Jimmy Butler tried to drag the Heat to a championship, didn't quite get there. Obviously, we talk about the old school Detroit Pistons being a team with like not really like Tayshaun Prince and Chauncey Billups and Rasheed Wallace and those guys. It was like, how did you win a championship? Well, I don't know if you can with a roster like that in today's NBA. Now you've got to have a big three, at the very, very least, a big two, which the Lakers have. They don't have a big three at the moment. They have a big two right now. The Warriors are going to try and do the same thing, where they've got, they've hit the reset button on their big three, big four a couple of times over the course of this dynasty. But when it doesn't work out, when you have, like, I don't know, when you've got the best wide receiving core in the NFL and a quarterback who should be good at delivering them the ball, and it doesn't go that way. Well, I mean, when DeAndre Hopkins and Patrick Mahomes are on the same team this year, and it doesn't really, is it just because of age? Is it because of too much wear on the tires?
And he just announced his retirement yesterday as well.
Here's some good ones coming in on the old text line. The Dish Pros text line is 877-353-0700. Steve Nash, Dwight Howard going to L.A. with Kobe and nothing happening. This one from baseball is probably the best one. Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani on the same Angels teams were a dud. Selfishness, lack of leadership, and determination is the missing ingredient, according to 92.79. There was Andrew McCutchen and Starling Marte were on the same team together with the Pirates for a long time. Like, anyone in baseball would die to have some of these combinations. But Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani are two all-time greats. Not like just of their era greats. We're talking all-time greats. They're going to go down as two of the top 50 all-around baseball players in the very long history of the game. And they were on the same roster, not for a year, for multiple years. And because of what the Angels represent and what the Angels are, always bridesmaids, never a bride. Nothing happened with Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani on the same roster.
Yes, I agree. Future Hall of Famers, for sure, 1,000%. But the last like four years that Shohei and Mike Trout, there's nothing produced at all, and I agree with you 1,000%.
I mean, and look, it's just sometimes things. Here's one for me. Okay, sometimes you take two ingredients that are delicious and you put them together. You put two things that should be awesome, and you add them together, and instead of compounding the goodness, they somehow detract from one another. For me, this is mint and chocolate together. Okay?
I agree.
I love minty stuff. I love chocolate stuff. I don't like Shamrock shakes. I don't like minty chocolate. Like the Girl Scout cookie Thin Mints are fine. They're fine. The York peppermint patty, it's okay. It's not the best. Mint chocolate chip ice cream, if that's your favorite, I use that as a profiling situation, and I just cut you out as someone with good taste. Like if I'm offering you, hey, we're going to the ice cream shop, you're going to get 2 scoops on a cone. What are you getting? If you're like, oh, mint chocolate chip is my jam, I'm like, okay, get out of here. I'm sorry.
Red flag.
You can't. Yeah, it's a red flag. It's like it's like an orange flag. It's a minor red flag. But still, and I understand why hundreds of years ago they were just like, let's put these two bad boys together. And for some people it works, right? Luka and LeBron might end up being chocolate chips and mint ice cream. Individually, tasty. Put them together, they're not. They don't actually improve one another. We're going to find out. Obviously, one game sample size to judge by, not nearly enough, but something to take a look at one way or the other. 877-353-0700. Always appreciate people weighing in, helping out. Anytime the Cowboys add literally anything is a great example from 1624 on the text line as well. When the Cowboys take a bunch of talents, right? You look at the Cowboys' offensive line, for example. Over the course of like the 2 decades of the 2000s, more years than not, they had like 2 guys that were all pros, a third that was a borderline all pro, some Pro Bowlers sprinkled in and out, and what have the Cowboys won since the early 90s? Nothing, right? All these other teams that have offensive lines like that, and then add, there's like a Des Bryant hanging out there, just can't make it work. And I think we know the missing ingredient when we're talking about the Dallas Cowboys. We know the reason why the stuff on paper doesn't translate to success on the field. That one is a decision-making error from the very, very, very top. The owner won't get his fingers out of the pie. He won't be hands-off enough. He won't hire a coach that can just steer the ship without his input and his influence. I think that's an easier one to recognize when it comes to Dallas. 0196. Iverson had very little help on the teams he was on. Mutombo, Snow, McKee, not much help. I mean, okay. You have one of the best defensive players in the history of the NBA, and you have Allen Iverson. Should be more than it was.
Yeah, you get an offensive playmaker and defensive playmaker. Easy.
End of the day, it just sparked a fun conversation in my own head. Dynamic duo, dynamic dud, whatever LeBron and Luka turn out to be, got me thinking about the ones that we were so sure were going to be a problem for everybody else in the NBA. I mean, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard should have been able to coexist. Kawhi, I think, won his championship in Toronto because he's such an odd duck. He's such like an outlier that he had to be the only star talent in order to get it done.
Yeah, and he was hurt a lot too, so we didn't really see a lot of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George as well, I would say.
Well, that might be – maybe Paul George is the common thread because every time we've seen Paul George teamed up with somebody, it's like, hey, man, Paul George is one of the best players in the NBA. And you go, really? Because I'm waiting to see Paul George push a team over the top and win something significant. And look, that's probably unfair because there are so many guys in every sport that as individual talents, I mean, Dan Marino is one of the best quarterbacks that ever played. Obviously never won a Super Bowl. Warren Moon, all these, there's a great Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers. Obviously team sports, there's a lot more dynamics than just are you great and are you consistently delivering. But that's why I'm asking the question. When on paper it looks like this team should be awesome, what is the missing ingredient? Coaching, leadership, chemistry, whatever it is. 877-353-0700. Always appreciate when people weigh in. Gordy Chiesa is going to stop by. I'm going to ask him whether, with a one-game sample size to watch, whether we see LeBron James and Luka help each other flourish, or this is one of those oil and water situations. I think that, we have our ideas about it philosophically. Maybe Gordy got to see something on the floor last night against the Utah Jazz that will give him a better idea about how it works out long term. We're just getting started here on a Tuesday edition of the Sean O'Connell Show. Gordy Chiesa next. Don't go anywhere. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Well, Lowry Market and fast break dunk. It ended up being a loss, 132-113. Jazz lost to the Lakers Monday night. Sound as always courtesy of Smith Entertainment Group Media. Craig Bolerjack on that call. Jazz back in action tomorrow night at home. Gordy Chiesa joins us, our resident NBA expert, one of the many, many, many people whose eyes were trained on Jazz Lakers last night. Luka Doncic making his awaited Laker debut. Gordy, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Sean, I'm doing fine. And last night was an interesting game where the Lakers are ready to play. They were excited to be there. And with Luka Doncic, his first game as a Laker, is that he responded. And they only played 24 minutes, and part of it is because of the injury to the calf strain, where they're using precautionary measures to bring him back slowly. But he performed well. But LeBron was tremendous, and so was Austin Reeves. And that's their new big three, Reeves, LeBron, and Luka Doncic.
So, Luka, 24 minutes, not huge numbers from him. I don't know that it was realistic to expect that as his first game in a Laker uniform, he's going to be firing in all cylinders and gelling with his teammates and everything else. But his performance overall, how'd you evaluate it?
Solid. Yeah, he'll help them what they need, and that's a unbelievable scorer and passer to play in harmony with LeBron. The Lakers are judged right now by player performances. And so you get the feeling that Luka and or LeBron, if not both, they could score on a road game in Game 6 or Game 7, 35 points each to win the game by one. And that's their goal right now. And the Lakers are really playing well. They've won now 6 games in a row, and they are, as we speak right now, they're the 4th seed. So about 3 weeks ago, we were talking about the Lakers. Are they going to make the play-in tournament, or possibly just the playoffs? And now they're 4th seed, and in their world, they're going after the Nuggets, who are tied in the loss column. So it's interesting how things change based on circumstances, trades, injuries. The Dallas Mavericks, they thought this year is going to be this is the year again. They lost in the NBA Finals, and now they're disarray. With Luka being traded, Anthony Davis, who gets hurt with the abductor, will be out for another 3 weeks. And then now with injuries to Derek Lively, injuries to Daniel Gafford, so they're reeling. So this shows you that you think it's going to all play out for you the way you planned it. And by the way, it hardly ever happens that way.
How long will it take for Luka to fully integrate himself, for LeBron and JJ and all these people to communicate what they need to communicate, and for that to be more of a finished product, that combination?
7 games.
Wow.
Because he held the ball a lot more. So the question is that they will adjust to him, so that he's going to have the ball a lot of times top of the circle to make plays for others. So the question is always, do I cut? Do I screen? Do I hold spacing? Do I try to, we call it slip screen, where you fake a screen and slip into the lane? Remember, Luka's a willing passer. So at a 6'8", when teams switch against him, he becomes a jumbo playmaker, very similar to LeBron. So what happens against teams with LeBron being so powerful, like a locomotive, a train coming at you, and Luka being so like big body that when teams switch on them, smaller defenders, they could pass over the top or bully ball them into the mid area, 10 to 14 feet, and shoot over the top or make plays. That's what makes it so interesting with the Lakers. They're built for the playoffs, and now we'll see about how it plays out.
So as I'm watching them play last night, I'm like, look, it doesn't have to be perfect right now. These two guys together with the right pieces could end up being a real dynamic duo. Could be one of these things that on paper you look at it and say, oh my gosh, and then actually on the floor you look at it and say, yeah, that's as dangerous as I thought it was going to be. Of course, in the NBA, we've seen many examples of the opposite. We were just talking about that in the last segment. So many times we've seen guys like, Kyrie and KD and whoever else teaming up, and there's plenty of examples, and it just doesn't really flesh out to be as dangerous or as dominant or really translate into the win column. I'm asking you to lean on your many years of experience and your predictive powers. How much does this work out to be a dynamic duo or more of a dud?
No, dynamic, very much, because both these guys know there's a finish line. For LeBron, absolutely. At age 40 with some heavy lifting on that body. Luka turns 26 next week. And so he's the heir apparent, but he's respectful of LeBron's brilliance. And so it's going to work out. The question for the Lakers, there's so many Laker fans from SoCal living in the Salt Lake City area now the last 25 years, is they've got to rebound better. So much is going to be based on Rui Hachimura, how well he plays, Jared Vanderbilt, how well he plays, also Jackson Hayes, and off injury, how he'll play with Christian Wood. So they need two of those four guys to play extremely positive, where contributions where they rebound in traffic and they're able to make timely open shots. And add to that, they need Gabe Vincent to be a knockdown shooter off the bench. And so if Austin Reeves ever gets hurt, God forbid, is that then they need Gabe Vincent, who played very well in Miami because of injuries, and just with DeAndre Russell being there to start the season, he was really an afterthought. And you could see a lot of Austin Reeves' emergence as far as being a lead player when they made that trade, moving on to Andrew Russell, and that gave Austin Reeves more playing time, and more importantly, just the internal confidence that the players have in him, and so does management, and now he's leapfrogged that. Just the other day, Austin Reeves scores 45 points in an NBA game when LeBron didn't play and Luka still was sitting out with the injury as an undrafted player. 45 points, NBA game, undrafted player, which tells us when the Jazz draft about 3 months from now, you just never know how it all plays out.
I mean, we keep talking about the Jazz tanking, and we keep talking about the talents that are coming up in this draft, and we talk about it, Gordy, like we do know what's going to happen with these guys. And obviously that's not true. If drafting were an exact science, then every single year 1, 2, and 3 would be the best 1, 2, and 3 players in their respective draft classes. And while the science is getting better and more accurate on evaluating athletes because we have so much more data, so much more information, it really is inexact. So how do you put together your formula? Like, how much do you rely on the stats? How much do you rely on what your eyes actually see? How much do you rely on talking to coaches and talking to other scouts and talking to people who know that individual better than you do to see how they would fit into a certain situation? How do you put the package together as someone who's been around the game so long?
The first thing is that the data usually validates what your eyes see. So that's the first premise. So it does, data. However, is that you go by your instincts. I've been doing this for 52 years, 36 years, either directly in the NBA or around the NBA. And what I've learned through that is that don't let the data take away what you see and feel. That most times, like any situation, the data will tell you certain things, but your instincts tell you, because, man, this is a team sport. That ball moves quickly around the floor. There's no other sport in the world that your world changes every 24 seconds. 24 seconds, the world changes on the basketball court. And so you've got to understand that. Can the player change ends? Can the players process what's going on? Does he over-dribble? Does he under-dribble? Does he play with confidence? Does he shoot recklessly? Is he physical? Does he understand the rules of the game? These are all things. Does he have a spirit about himself? And then innately, when a team is down, how does he perform when you need a basket mentally, physically, spiritually? And is he a leader? Is he encourages people? I just described Austin Reeves in the sense where even though he's slightly under-talented, he's got a punch to his game, that he plays hard. And so that guy to be undrafted is really, it's hard to imagine that the scouts back in Wichita State, everybody saw him play, but for some, and then he went to Oklahoma, transferred. And so the people saw him play, but they judged him what he couldn't do versus what he can do. And that's what, move the ball, get into the lane. He got some hops to his game. So he'll be the classic example. Freddie Van Fleet, an all-star with the all-star with the Toronto Raptors, now with the Houston Rockets. He was a guy also undrafted. So what were they looking at? They kept on saying what a guy can't do versus what he can do. I'm the opposite. I reflect on what his skill set is and will he fit into a team. The way to categorize it, most players are instinctive players. Other players are system players. The best ones play both. They play on their instincts, but they perform within the system, help their team win. I just described LeBron, right? System player. Matter of fact, he is the system, and instinctively, he's hard to guard. Nikola Jokic, system player, incredible all around. He makes his teammates better. So think about Jokic. He was the 41st pick of the draft when he came out. 40 guys are picked ahead of him, and now you can make a narrative. He could be MVP every single year until he starts getting older, as far as his body breaking down. Yeah. That's how it's an exact science, but it's based on a lot of it's based on your toughness mentally, not physically all the time, but your mental toughness to perform under duress. Last point about this: when I was a director of pro personnel of the Memphis Grizzlies, I used to always be maniacal about judging players on road games. That I very rarely saw people play at home that I wanted to judge. I go on the road to see them play because I want to see them play in a hostile environment, how they perform, versus when it's much easier to play well consistently when things are going in front of the home fans. I want to go in hostile environment. That made Karl Malone so tremendous, where Karl played some of his greatest games ever on the road versus at home.
Gordy, how closely are you following this Minnesota Timberwolves ownership, whether the sale's actually going to happen or not?
Yeah, I am. Very much. It's going to happen. And it's going to be interesting how so now A-Rod's going to own the team as part owner right now, and the two T-Wolves will be owned by a former professional player and a hedge fund guy. Yeah,
it's quite a bargain if they can get this thing pushed all the way through, because they agreed on this price back in 2021, and it's $1.5 billion for A-Rod and Mark Lore and company to take over as majority ownership of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the market has been reset. Every franchise sold since then is more in that $3 billion range. So these guys are getting a 50% discount. Pretty awesome for them.
Very much. Add to that. So the Celtics right now on the market, roughly the action price is $6 billion.
Woo! That's
$6 billion. So again, it's going to be either one or two people buy that, or a group of people of three or four or five. Usually speaking, now in this generation, it's a whole bunch of hedge fund guys that buy these teams now. So it's not owned by usually just by one person, unless it's that person owns Amazon, etc., which could happen. But that's how high the going rate is as far as playing it. A long time ago, I know it's yesteryear, Larry Miller bought the Utah Jazz back in 1985, the majority ownership, for $15 million.
It's crazy how these prices have gone up. All right, Gordy, what's your list today?
All right, let's say, so this weekend is All-Star Weekend. It's going to be in San Francisco at the Chase Center, and it's going to be a happening. This is how the NBA, how they showcase all the good things about the league and on all different platforms. So this is my annual list of the NBA All-Star Game MVP award winners. The last 10 years, these players have won the MVP. And it's important to the players because usually they get a bonus as far as roughly $1 million, which hopefully those guys donate to charity. And also it helps them as far as street cred against their contemporaries. And also as far as their social platforms, they can really go further out as far as advertising what they did. 2015, the winner was Russell Westbrook of the Thunder. The game was played in Madison Square Garden. 2016, again, Russell Westbrook, Thunder. The game was played in Toronto. 2017, Anthony Davis of the Pelicans. The game was played in New Orleans. 2018, LeBron James of the Cavaliers. The game was played at Staples Center in L.A. 2019, Kevin Durant of the Warriors. The game was played in Charlotte. 2021, Kawhi Leonard of the Clippers. The game was played in Chicago. 2021, Giannis. The game was the Bucks. The game was played in Atlanta. 2022, Stephen Curry of the Warriors. The game was played in Cleveland. 2023, Jason Tatum of the Celtics. The game was played here in Salt Lake City. And last year's MVP winner was our own Weber State graduate, Damian Lillard of the Bucks. The game was played in Indianapolis. So this weekend, my instincts tell me the game's going to be played in San Francisco. If I was a betting man, which I'm not, I'm leaning towards either Stephen Curry or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to be named MVP.
How much do you guys care about being all-star MVP, knowing, how it's not the most competitive game, but it's still an honor?
Oh, it's very much an honor. Yeah, among your peers. This year we're going on Thursday when I'm in the studio. They made a format. It's almost like a mini tournament now to make it much more interesting and more competitive. So it's the first time they're doing this where you have to win to advance, and so it should be interesting. It's important. Remember, these players are these are your peers, and you want to be the MVP. And just speaking of that, is the MVP trophy was named after Kobe Bryant. So the person that wins the MVP, it's the Kobe Bryant MVP trophy. Kobe was a 4-time winner of the All-Star MVP, where he tied Bob Pettit of the St. Louis Hawks as the most ever MVPs of the All-Star games at 4. So it's important to the players, not to the fans totally, but for the guys participating, it's absolutely critical. Last point about that. What about LeBron? LeBron's an MVP of the All-Star game 3 times.
We'll see if he ever gets another one. If, they maybe a little lifetime achievement type All-Star MVP for LeBron James at 40 years old. Seems like a lofty expectation.
Sure. Next year's going to be played at the Intuit Dome.
I love that arena.
The home team. So we'll see if LeBron and those guys, now they're in LA, look different. That's going to be the arch rival Clippers. We'll see. Whenever they get or New York, more bounce to it, and San Francisco also that group. Just generally speaking, the NBA tries to you have to bid on it. So in 2027, the game's going to be played in Indianapolis. So they try to alternate East Coast, West Coast, but this time it's going to be back-to-back this year and next year. Thanks. Peace out, Sean. Stay well.
Gordy, all went out today. If you are a Utah football fan, season ticket renewal time. We'll talk about these prices. We'll talk about the home games. Are you renewing your season tickets? Are you forking out the dough? Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Red and Blue with Jerem Jordan, talking a little Utah and BYU to start hour number 2. That's coming up. Sean O'Connell Show here with some hot lunch, and this one is hot for some people. Tell me how you're feeling as you got the season ticket renewal email today. If you're a Utah football fan, season tickets can be renewed starting today. Your home schedule is Cal Poly September 6th, Texas Tech September 20th, Arizona State October 11th, Colorado October 25th, Cincinnati November 1st, Kansas State November 22nd. Arizona State October 11th, that's an awesome game. Colorado October 25th, that should be an awesome game. Deion Sanders did not go anywhere. Anytime Coach Prime is around, it's just more interesting. Whether the team stinks or is good, it's more interesting with Coach Prime. Admit it. Love it. Lean into it. All right? Kansas State, that'll be a good game. Cal Poly, you get a throwaway game, home game every year. Cincinnati, I don't think they're going to be good. Texas Tech, to be determined, big question mark. So you got, 3 of your 6 home games should be awesome games. And then we get into the pricing. This is just the world we live in today, not only in college sports, in sports in general, pro sports in general. Did you see how much it costs to buy season tickets to the Utah Jazz this year? They stink. They're terrible. You can't even have an expectation. People are still showing up to the arena. They gave you discounted concessions. That's how bad the Jazz are. All right? Utah Hockey Club, brand new, fun, amazing. You better have money if you want to go see those games. You want to buy a full season ticket package on the glass? You got to be a millionaire. I'm not exaggerating. You have to be a millionaire to reasonably afford season tickets on the glass. And that's just the case. Now, I am of the opinion that if you are rich, this is the luxury expense that is worth your time. Vacations and experiences like this. That's awesome. Most Utah football fans don't fall in that category where they get to call themselves independently wealthy. Most of us out there are working daily jobs. Most of us are hardworking. Well, I'm not that hardworking. Most of you are hardworking, right? So I put the poll question out based on the prices that this email has in it. How much you willing to pay for those 6 games? 6 games per ticket. You know what the average price works out to be? The cheapest, the upper bleachers, $475 for the whole season. The upper bleachers, $475 for the whole season. So what are you willing to pay as a Utah football fan? $475 to $800, which covers most of the ticket packages, $800 to $1,400. When you put those, you go $475 to $1,400. That is 80% of the stadium, all right? And then above that, you get into the more luxury prices, $1,400 to $2,000, 4% of the votes coming in on that. And then there's like the South End Zone, the Ken Garf Club, the fancy stuff, the Crimson Club stuff, $2,000 to $4,600 for season tickets. That's 6 games, $4,600 per seat for all 6 games.
It's insane.
It's a lot of money. And look, you can charge it because it's a premium product. This is the price that fans have to pay because this is the price that the team has to pay in order to keep up with the competition. There's nobody, I know it feels this way as it becomes harder and harder to afford not only your daily life, but then these small luxuries you afford yourself as a working man or a working woman. It's harder than it used to be to get by, right? So it feels like it's an attack. It feels like it's a conspiracy against you. It's not. It's just the price of poker, as Bill Riley used to say on these airwaves all the time. It goes up. The further you climb this ladder that Utah has tried for decades to climb and is hanging on somewhat precariously, if we're being honest, because everybody in college football outside of the Blue Bloods is hanging on to this power ladder with some sort of, especially in the Big 12, especially in the ACC, you're kind of clinging on by your fingernails, trying to stay on the right side of the line of demarcation when it comes down to super leagues and a semi-pro and collective bargaining and revenue sharing and all that kind of stuff. Like, Utah has turned itself into one of the big boys, but this is new money. University of Utah is new money. All right? They're the tech billionaire instead of the old oil billionaire, instead of the Rockefellers who built America's railways. You are like, hey, we belong here, but we are not as established as everyone else. Unfortunately, this is the price that the fans then have to pay. We all have to, unfortunately, take on some of that burden. And it gets, I'm getting texts, I'm getting tweets that it used to sit in the north end zone used to be $200 for the whole season. Now it's over $500. I know. But guess what? If you want this team to be great, if you want this team to be able to offer the NIL stuff and offer these facilities, not the NIL stuff because that's separate from ticket sales, but if you want them to offer the facilities, you want to have the elite coaches hired, you want to have all this stuff, that the price eventually does trickle down to you. We don't get to say, well, where's the billionaire donor? Why don't the Garfs just crack off another check? How come the Eccles family doesn't increase the endowment? Well, because that's an unreasonable expectation, all right? So what are you willing to pay? None of these numbers scare me if I have the means. I budget myself very carefully. I'm financially smart. I drive a 2017 used SUV, all right? So I can afford stuff like this. I don't have to do the Utah tickets, right? So I can afford Utah Hockey Club tickets. So I can afford a road trip to go see Utah play a game if I'm not employed by the home of the Utes, right? You have to make sacrifices in order to support your favorite teams. Are you still willing to do so, given the context of everything that's going on with this team right now? 80% of the votes, 81% of the total votes have come in that $1,400 or less for your season ticket package is what you're willing to pay. That's $200+ dollars per ticket per game. That's a big ask for a lot of people.
And only 6 home games this year.
Only 6 home games, and only 3 of those are great games.
Yeah.
And none of them are your rival. Like, for me, if I don't have a press pass to get into that BYU Utah game, and I can't call in a favor, I'm paying up to $1,500 just to get into that game.
Yeah.
So if that's part of my season ticket package, I'm like, you know what? It's fine. I'll bite that bullet.
Yeah, it's like
But that's not what you've got this year. You've got Arizona State, who you probably feel like you owe an ass whooping, if we're being honest. Utah should have won that game last year. So they go on to win the conference championship. They're going to have a target on their back. That's October 11th. I want my tickets to that game. I probably don't care about the Cal Poly game as much if I'm an average Utah fan, but those are your prices. The bare minimum season ticket price to get in, $475. The email has the breakdown of how much of that goes to the scholarship fund, how much of that is the facility fee, how much of that is an actual ticket price, and it goes all the way up to $4,600 per ticket for the season. And I know it feels like, oh my gosh, this is so much. And it is. It is more than we're used to paying. The price goes up every single year. These ticket prices inflate every single year. I encourage you, if you feel like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore, I encourage you, if it's financially not a good decision for you to make, do what you have to do. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your kids. All that stuff is 100 times more important. If you have the slush fund, if you have the swear jar, if you have that little side, that trickle of income that gets set aside for your luxury items, there is not a better place for you to spend it than on these tickets. You get 6 home games a year. You get 6 Saturdays in college football. You get 6 trips up there to the hill in the most picturesque stadium in all of college football. Most of the time in beautiful weather. Even when it gets a little crisp outside, it's awesome. If you can do it, do it. Renew it. This is one of those things you don't regret because you get to be there in the building when the crazy moments happen. And they don't always work out to your favor, but you're not going to forget that stupid flag coming out on the field in the BYU game this last year. Not one person, not one Utah fan that was in their seat for that game and the atmosphere in that game and feeling the energy of that game and looking down on the sideline and watching Mark Harlan freak out and watching Kyle Whittingham freak out and watching all the gathered alumni that had been given sideline passes and watching all those guys freak out. Not one Utah fan in the stadium in that moment was just like, I can't believe I paid $200 for this seat. You're not going to regret this expenditure if you have the means to do it. So I know you're entitled to, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm sick of continuing to pay higher prices. But you're going to regret not being in the stadium more. Only buy it, only extend, only renew if you can actually afford it. But if you can afford it, don't complain. Write the check. Because you want the premium product, and this is part of the premium product. It just is. $475 to $4,600, depending on your ticket price. At Real OC Sports, tell me which one you're willing to pay. $475 to $800, $800 to $1,400, $1,400 to $2,000, $2,000 to $4,600. The home slate is awful this year, says Corey on Twitter. I could buy a lot for $1,200. Yes, you could. You could buy a lot of things for $1,200. You can buy yourself a little e-bike, and you can go trundling around, ride around the neighborhood, strengthen the legs, strengthen the lungs. But you're not at Rice-Eccles Stadium having irreplaceable experiences for 6 Saturdays in the fall. We have to stop acting like these are not core memory opportunities for us. They just are.
They are. I agree.
And I know it sucks when you got to pay more for those things. I'm the cheapest dude on this radio station right now. Like all of you out there listening, I'm more miserly than you are, I promise. I hate spending money. I get irrationally angry when I have to spend money. Even if it's on something like this, like that I enjoy, something like this that I look forward to. I am cantankerous with my cash. But I'm telling you, if you have the means, $475 to $4,600, wherever you fall in with your yearly income, with your savings, with the money that your wife allows you to spend, buy the damn tickets. All right, we're going to ask. Jerem Jordan's going to join us for some red and blue. I'm way over time here. He's going to join us in just a few minutes. I don't know what the BYU ticket prices are. Maybe he can give us some insight there. We can contrast and compare. O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Utah women's basketball star Kennedy McQueen joins us in 19 minutes on the show. Make sure you're here for that. Right now, time for some red and blue. We check in on the BYU side of things. Jerem Jordan, our friend, joins us. Brought to you by Mountainland Supply. Visit mountainlandsupply.com or stop by any of their physical locations for any of your home improvement needs. mountainlandsupply.com. Jerem, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. How are you, sir?
I'm good, dude. McQueen's a baller, man. I was hanging out last night on the pregame show behind the scenes with Alema and Michael Smith, and when Tyson Ewing is the play-by-play for Utah women's basketball, he was telling me about how McQueen is like needs to get, if she gets her points up to like 20 a game, she'd be one of the few in women's college basketball history to go 50, 40, 90 on the field goal, 3-point free throw percentage. She's an elite player, man. Jeez.
She is. And Tyson, by the way, elite play-by-play guy. He does an awesome job.
He's
very,
awesome.
Very
He's
passionate
great.
about the job as well. We were just having a conversation. The email went out today for Utah fans to renew the season tickets or not. And there's always sticker shock when this thing goes out. Every single year it's a conversation, and people have to make this decision on for the 6 games that I get at home, which for Utah is Cal Poly, Texas Tech, Arizona State, Colorado, Cincinnati, Kansas State. Do I want to pay anywhere from $475 for my season ticket package all the way up to $4,600 for the fancy club seating for my season ticket package? And, you know, I'm getting some feedback that, yes, absolutely, can't wait. And I'm getting some feedback like, hey, the price goes up every year. I just can't do it anymore. Look, the reality
I'll politely decline, Sean. No, thank you.
you're not gonna renew your Utah season tickets, Jerem? Is what you're telling me?
Probably not this year. Yeah.
Do we know what the numbers are for BYU? Like, what's the get-in price for a BYU season ticket holder?
That's a great question. I have no clue, dude. I have no idea.
Yeah, we're lucky in this job because we get our press passes and we get to be
feel
there.
Bad. I'm just. It's gonna be a cold one. I'm like, not in the press box with Tucano's dog.
Not in the press box with that Tucano's meal that they provide for everyone down at LaVell Edwards Stadium.
Oh. Shout out to the real fans, because I'm not one of them.
All right, so let's say that this conversation is happening on BYU Sports Nation. You're getting the feedback like, hey, I can't wait, but you're also getting the feedback like, guys, I can't pay this anymore. My thing is, look, go to 1 less movie next year, go to 3 less movies next year, whatever it is. Stop buying your thirst drink or your Starbucks for a month and pay for 1 extra ticket, whatever it is. Most of us, we can find the wiggle room. If you can't, absolutely don't renew the season tickets. If you can find the wiggle room, this is just, I'm a college football fan probably first and foremost. Among all of my sports interests, college football holds the highest ground for me. So I'm like, yeah, I will pay these get-in prices, but I realize not everyone feels that way. How do you make the pitch, make the case that this is worthy expenditure as it goes up every year, basically for every program in the country?
Yeah, stuff's more expensive. Obviously, inflation's been wild the last couple of years. Not to mention the fact that there's revenue sharing and NIL, and there's a constant arms race among universities in athletics, especially. So, yeah, stuff costs money, man. And if you want to watch at home, that's great. I don't feel bad for any or not. I don't feel bad, telling someone, it's okay. Like it's okay if you don't want to. I get it. It's expensive. Stuff's expensive. If you love the experience of being in person and a lot of schools have done a great job of making that game day experience awesome. Credit to the schools. I know at BYU, it's I've joked this year, it was a show that featured a football game. We had the drones and Cougar Canyon and the band and the lead up to it and the light show and Cosmo and the fire dancers. It is a show, man. And the more you sort of think about that outside of the actual game, it's part of it. And there's an experience there that's to be had. And there's some of my best memories are as a kid going to games and enjoying that time. So that's what it's all about. And at the end of the day, you hope your team wins. But if they don't, it's about being together at some sporting events where in the end it's just a game and we love it and we have jobs around it, of course, and we talk about it with our friends. But we all kind of love being like, oh, yeah, I was at that one game, right? Whether it be a road or home, that was this crazy moment. And here's what I remember. What's the cost of those memories? That's the question I would ask. What's the cost of those memories?
That's a more eloquent way to make the point that I tried to make for 15 minutes. Like, how do you replace those moments by just having the extra dollars in your pocket or the, I don't know, a nicer car or whatever? This is a worthy expenditure for me, but I understand for everyone that can't be the case. All right.
Yeah, it's tough.
Moving on to a little BYU basketball. Last couple of games, I should say, not their best performances. Arizona's a really good team. That was a loss, 85-74. On the road at Cincinnati, I think a little harder to explain. Tell me what's going on with this BYU basketball team.
Cincinnati was weird. They shot really well in the second half. Started on a 22 run, ended up scoring 84, 85 points. BYU last week gave up 85 and 84 points respectively. Defense did not do well enough to give themselves a chance to win. And so, the Arizona game, BYU didn't make a shot for a 6-minute spell down the stretch, made their last 2 but missed 9 in a row. It was back and forth. BYU actually had a lead late in that game. And so that was disappointing. Texas Tech kind of similar where BYU ran out of gas. Cincinnati was the one that hurts because that's a team that, yes, has a very good defense, but BYU beat by 28 in Provo. Then they go and lose by 18 on the road. That was really hard. So tonight's game at West Virginia, difficult. Ken Palm saying it's going to be a 3-point game. BYU not favored to win either, 2.5 out of the homies in the desert. So it's like, how's this going to work? How's this going to work with BYU? The hope is their 17th ranked offense can go up against the 17th ranked defense in efficiency and play well. BYU is a good rebounding team. Hopefully the experience that BYU had last year dominating West Virginia can play in with some of the vets. And they really need to win because Lenardi says, hey, BYU's last team in, but he highlighted kind of non-conference schedule wasn't good, which BYU already knew, but also BYU's unique bracketing, given no Sunday play, doesn't kind of do them any favors on Selection Sunday. So BYU needs in these final 8 to probably go at least 4-4 to have a shot if they win a game in the Big 12 tournament. If not, 5-3. There are easier games than this one, but it'd be really nice to grab this one for BYU.
Of those remaining games, you got Kansas, road game against Arizona, road game against Iowa State as well. So some pretty tough ones interspersed in there for this BYU team. Are you watching Richie Saunders or Yegor Demin or any of the guys that might have some NBA shots? Are you watching them any differently as we get into this time of the year where fewer games left to put on tape from now till the end of the season, and then of course you got tournament time, and then immediately a draft process, a scouting process that happens. Are you watching these guys any differently right now?
Absolutely. Richie Saunders, especially the last couple of weeks. Kevin Young said early in the season to Richie and then on the air in his coach's show that Richie Saunders has NBA potential. And that first was like, huh? Richie is more athletic than you think. He's quicker than you think. His shot's better than you think. I think everything he does is better than you think. He's awesome. He's a great kid. He's got a chance to kind of be a second-round pick or an undrafted guy that makes his way onto a G League two-way contract kind of thing, and he just makes your team better. And he's been BYU's best player this year, which I don't think we thought we'd say preseason. Meanwhile, with Yegor Demin, trying to dial in that shot and that three, that's still struggling, but his passing and his vision is elite. And like we talked about the last couple of weeks, all you need is like one elite attribute, and you've got a chance to make it in the NBA if you have the tangible, the size, the length, that kind of thing. Yegor has that. His vision's been great. He's got a few turnovers here and there that he wants back, but he's been good that way. And then Kenny Catchings kind of has more to kind of catch up on with his potential. He's certainly got NBA potential. He's not kind of been to the level that I think he or the team were hoping for, the fan base. But if he has a couple good games down the stretch, who knows? That could change around pretty quickly.
Jerem Jordan for Little Red and Blue here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Haven't talked to you since the Super Bowl just a couple of days ago. The Kansas City Chiefs got blown out by the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think any of us had that on our bingo card, expected that to be the way that this game worked out. There's obviously some strong BYU connections to that Chiefs team, and I think even one or two on the Eagles as well. Your overarching thoughts on that Super Bowl, and what does it mean for Andy Reid that this one didn't work out the way that he wanted it to?
I love the people that are like, dude, yeah, I saw this come. I'm like, no, you didn't. No one said, like, who were the people that were saying, oh, Eagles are going to destroy the Chiefs? I was not hearing a soul say that, but it was boring, man. Like, I just wanted to, like, just give me a good game. I was actually rooting for the Eagles. I was tired of the greatness of the Chiefs. But, which felt weird going against our boy Andy Reid down here. But, no, I don't think it affects Andy Reid's legacy too much. I think listen, would any of us be surprised if the Chiefs made the Super Bowl again in the next year or two? Like, no, right?
No,
I know
not at all.
A lot of free agents to replace, but when you have the best head coach and best quarterback in the game, like, you got a shot. Come on. And they have great culture there. They've won a ton. Like, why wouldn't you want to go there and play? So, yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out. And then there actually weren't any BYU guys per se, although down here we play the member of the church card. So Kellen Moore got baptized a couple years ago. So he's one of us. And then, he's a Ute, but he's one of my more likable Ute homies, Britton Covey. Congrats to Britton for his work there. So, yeah, pretty exciting stuff, but the game itself didn't deliver a ton, kind of boring. But you know what? You tip the cap to the Eagles. They dominated, and the parity of the NFL, which I know Chiefs are going for the three-peat and whatnot, but they've been there in 5 or 6. It's just fun to see that, like, most teams have a shot to be in the Super Bowl in a cyclical manner. Even the Lions, they were in the mix. I know they didn't go, but like the Raiders, it's been like 20 years or whatever. But like everybody holds out hope in the NFL. That's why it's the best league. Baseball, there's no hope unless you got a gajillion dollars. And I guess that's collegiate athletics as well now.
Well, since you brought it up, and now you have a vested interest in the success of Kellen Moore as a member of the church, I did. Is he making the right decision, taking a New Orleans Saints head coaching job and leaving this powerhouse offense that he helped put together in Philadelphia?
I think financially you have to do it. And what if he resurrects that team, right? What if he can figure it out? You've got like an awesome fan base and with the Saints one out. So who knows? I think you have to take that. There are certain jobs where like so-and-so will take the Browns gig and it's like, oh, the Browns really? Or the Raiders? Oh my gosh, really? Pete Carroll, why are you going to that? I think when you're young, like Kellen, I think he's 36, like I think he has to take it, even though staying with the Eagles would probably be, not probably, it'd be way better competitively. But you got to kind of see what you can do on your own. And I'm interested to see what happens there, especially with Taysom Hill and Jamal Williams in the mix down there.
Oh, geez. You know, Kellen is going to have like 10 special packages for Taysom Hill.
Why wouldn't he?
I love watching Taysom Hill play because, I mean, the Ute and Cougar thing evaporates for me once guys get into the NFL. But
yeah,
he's just – the way that he just does anything on a football field well is fascinating to me. There's what, 6 guys in the NFL that could play multiple positions like that, and he's the best one of them? It's wild.
Isn't it funny how much we lauded Travis Hunter, but like Taysom sort of deserves equal to or more credit for what he's done in the NFL? With that, like I hope that the writers later go, Taysom Hill is a Hall of Famer, not because he was great at one thing, but because he was good at a ton of things.
You know, it's wild. I don't think he will be a Hall of Famer. If he played in like the 1940s, he would have been a Hall of Famer. Because all those
Jim Thorpe.
Yes, because that's what those guys were doing back then. They were putting mismatched shoes on, and they were just like, "All right, let's just go out and be athletes." And like
Wilt Chamberlain scoring 100 with Converse. Like what? The tech wasn't there. Yeah, Taysom's so unique. I'd built him to play football. Like that dude is a unit. Fun fact, by the way, I called a rugby game in New Orleans a couple of years ago. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go to church Sunday morning, go call this game, fly out, whatever. I ended up going to the same ward as Taysom Hill there. And boy, does he stick out when you have a bunch of 12-year-olds passing Sacramento, and then there's this burly 6'3", 230 guy passing out the bread and water. I was like, that's a good dude. He's a good guy, and it's been fun to see him.
Sports calendar that gets you like truly fired up. I know that you were deeply in that rugby scene. You're a college basketball junkie because of, you got March Madness coming up. Like, what is the next thing that really gets you fired up?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things. Can BYU make it to the NCAA tournament? Can they win a game? Because if this team is going to be better than last year, they can't just make it. They got to win a game. And frankly, with this team, they've they've not probably performed up to the hopes given the talented freshmen and the resources around it. They're working on that. They're figuring it out in year one with the staff. I'm kind of looking at it, honestly, as like a 2 or 3 year build, because we look back at BYU football right now and we go, well, was 5 and 7 sort of worth it to figure out, 1, what we need to do, and then 2, who we need to get and how we need to do it? And what? Yes, it was worth it to get that amazing 11-2 season this last year. So I'm not saying BYU basketball is in the same space, because they're certainly better than BYU was in that 5 and 7 football team this year. But what if it's a build to sort of figure it out as a program for when A.J. DeBonta gets here, and hopefully some nice pieces around him? Who knows? So that's one. I've been calling men's volleyball for BYU for 17 years. I really enjoy that. We had a couple of good matches, top 5 matchup 2 weeks ago. And then, Major League Rugby begins this week. I'll call 7 of the 8 Utah Warriors home games on TV. So I'm excited about that. Should be a more competitive team than last year, which would be awesome.
Jerem, as always, very much appreciate your time. Thanks for stopping by for some Red and Blue on the Sean O'Connell Show.
Thanks, Sean. And, hey, make memories at these games. That's what it's all about.
The only thing that could make a Utah football game more memorable is if someone would smuggle a cougar tail in for me, because those delicious foot-long maple donuts, that's the only thing lacking. It's the only thing that is better about a BYU game than a Utah game in person, is that you can get that cougar tail donut. And at one point, I don't know that you can anymore, but at one point you could get a bratwurst with the cougar tail as the bun of that bratwurst. And that thing was, whew.
I know we have this at Rice Cycles. What the heck?
Well, because, we're not, you can't have cougar tails. Now, what they should do, because Swoop is the mascot, right?
Mm-hmm. You
got to do like some kind of swoop feather.
Yeah.
You don't do the cougar tail. You do a swoop feather, some delicious fried confection. Let's get on that creative team up there at Rice Cycle Stadium. All right, Kennedy McQueen is going to join us, the Runnin' Utes basketball star, back in the lineup, playing her way all the way back into shape and good health. Should be the right time for this Utah women's basketball team. We'll talk with Kennedy McQueen next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Kennedy McQueen rips it. Highway robbery. Lefty layup in transition is good. 25-13, Utah by 12.
Little Kennedy McQueen highlight, steal, and a fast break layup against UCF. That sound courtesy of the Utah Sports Radio Network. Tyson Ewing on the call. Highway robbery called it. Back in action tomorrow night against Colorado. Your Lady Running Utes. And Kennedy McQueen actually joins us on the show now, talking about all things Utah basketball. Kennedy, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing awesome. Glad to have you on the show. The lowest hanging fruit here, the easiest question to ask. How has it felt? How has it been getting back into this lineup, all the way back into this lineup now with a full minutes, I think we saw against UCF at least, after the injury, and do you feel all the way recovered and back in your groove?
Yeah, I feel a lot better. Every game it feels like I'm getting back into my groove more and more. Definitely wasn't planning on missing 4 or 5 weeks in my senior season in the middle of the conference, but it's awesome to be back and out there playing with the girls.
So we were watching some NBA basketball last night and talking about injuries and guys coming back, and I was like, you know what? I got Kennedy on the show tomorrow. The process as a student athlete of going through, you're expected to act like a pro. You're expected to handle it like a pro, make sure that you're doing all the treatment. But you've also got your class schedule, and you've also got, film sessions and workouts and whatever else you can participate in with the team. How difficult was that process for you to sustain the injury and know you got to follow these certain steps to get all the way back? How hard was that for you?
I mean, yeah, it's hard. The only injury I've really dealt with was I think it was my sophomore year, and I had a stress fracture and I missed a few weeks, where this injury was kind of different, where I had to let it calm down for a bit, but then it was like get after it, then just some pain tolerance things. But yeah, it was hard. I mean, I think you're busier when you're hurt than when you're actually playing and going through the everyday life of like being an active student athlete. So yeah, I think my day started earlier. I had to get lifts in or rehabs in hours before practice started, then go through practice. And then once I could finally start playing basketball again, had some individual workouts with coaches. So it's just a busier schedule, and it's hard. It's hard because all you want to do is get back out there. So mentally and physically it's tough, but I was just very lucky that I had a return date this season. So I had to keep that all in perspective.
So as you're going through that process, I imagine some days it feels great, and other days maybe there's more soreness, there's more of that pain tolerance that you have to muster up for yourself. And, of course, you're working with trainers, doctors, the whole way. Patience in that process. Are you a naturally patient person? I know you're competitive. You probably wanted to be out there, as soon as you felt like you could run. The patience aspect of it, was that a difficulty for you?
Yeah, the patience was a very difficult part for me. I feel like in normal life, I'm a pretty patient person, but in the middle of the Big 12 season, I definitely wanted to get out to the court as soon as possible. But with the injury I had, you had to let it calm down, even if it was feeling good, just to prevent re-injury. So I had to fight for those restricted minutes against BYU, and I was just so lucky as soon as I got 10. I was so happy to hear that. I wasn't going to argue anymore, even though I wanted more for sure. But, yeah, it's definitely taken quite the patience. And even I feel like the biggest thing that I didn't see coming that had to do with patience was just coming back. I guess I just kind of expected to pick up where I left off, and it's taken me 2-3 games to get back into the rhythm of things. I feel like I'm finally back now. But those first 2 games, I feel like there were some rough spots where just a shot was a little short of just that game speed going off using that ankle again, and then also just some turnovers that I feel like were pretty uncharacteristic for me. So I wasn't expecting that part, and so that's taken some more patience that I didn't see coming for sure.
When you are sitting out during that injury process, the cliche is, right, every coach is like, get your mental reps and make sure that you're going through the motions at least mentally. Were you able to maximize that time from a mental standpoint? Did you learn anything? Did you pick up opponent tendencies by watching extra film? When you're physically limited, did you have to sharpen the mental side of the game if that was all you could do?
Yeah, I think there's definitely that perspective on it as well. I think during practices, I was trying to be more understanding of where coaches were coming from and why that person should have done this instead of that, and like what Coach Gavin was seeing out there. So that was super helpful, just to kind of sit back and see all that side of the game. But also just I watched a ton of like our previous games back, and just being like, okay, when I missed this shot, like I finally had extra time on my hands, and wanted to be involved with the game as I could still. So I just would go back and be able to spend some extra time on some film that normally I wouldn't have been able to. So that was definitely a blessing in disguise for sure. But definitely just wanted to stay around basketball as much as I could and be as involved as I could.
Utah women's basketball guard Kennedy McQueen is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things Utah hoops. I've asked every one of your teammates who's joined me on the show, so you don't get to avoid the question. You had a wild season change with Lynn Roberts getting the head coaching job for the pro franchise in L.A., which is something that only happens because of the opposite season format in women's basketball. It's a really weird deal. And Gavin Peterson steps in. What was that change like for you, and how, you talk about your own injury process getting back into the rhythm. Are you guys all the way in rhythm now with Gavin Peterson as the head coach?
Yeah, I would say it was shocking to say the least. None of us saw that coming for sure. Definitely so happy for Coach Rob, and she's one of the greatest coaches that I've ever played for, so there was no surprise when she got that opportunity that she had to take it. So super happy for her, but definitely didn't see that one coming. But I had no doubt when they announced that it was going to be Coach Gav. I mean, I've spent 5 years with him and as the associate head coach, and just being around him behind every single one of our big wins. Like, he was the X's and O's behind the scouts. So he knows his stuff, so I had no doubt when his name was called that he was going to be the head coach. So I absolutely have loved that chance, and yeah, it's been awesome. And I feel like we have finally hit our stride. I felt like we were kind of hitting it up until I got hurt, and then we went on that really tough stretch where we played some of the top teams in the conference. So I was sad I couldn't be part of that. But now that I'm back and we have some momentum going again, I think we're finally back on track, and we're going to keep that train moving forward for sure.
7 p.m. tip tomorrow night against Colorado. What are you looking forward to or worried about in this Colorado game?
Yeah, I think we're just excited. I mean, we're some previous Pac-12. I would say they would probably consider our rival in the Pac-12, just the closest school we had. So it'll be nice to see some familiar faces again for sure. Colorado, they have some new players on their roster this year, but no matter who they have, Colorado's known for how they play, and just no matter the score, the time of the game, like, they're going to be giving you 110% of their effort, which is something we've always respected about them. And then they're just a aggressive pressuring team on defense, so we got to be ready to handle that, and we're just excited.
So part of my job as a radio host on the Home of the Utes is to make it sound like I know what it's like for the athletes and for coaches that are doing the work up there and that are competing in this new conference. I never competed in the Big 12 conference. I was a student athlete, not a very good one, but the experience right now is so different than it was 20 years ago when I was involved. The landscape, and it's a cliche we use too often, Kennedy, it's just like, oh, it's a changing landscape. Everything is different than it used to be. But for a student athlete who's in it right now, how much of that is actually on your mind on a weekly basis, maybe even on a daily basis? Things like the transfer portal and NIL and television contracts and all this stuff that we talk about every single day as people in sports media. How much of that changed landscape is really on your mind as a student athlete from a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis?
I mean, like you said, the world of college sports has changed immensely over these past few seasons and is probably going to continue to change for sure. But I would say on a day-to-day, I mean, I can only speak for me personally, obviously, but I wouldn't say it's on my mind a day-to-day or NIL, little things like that. I don't think that's on my mind daily, but definitely, like, it's been an awesome opportunity to have all these different apps that you can go on to. And if you want some more pocket cash, get a deal for a couple $100. Like, it's awesome to be able to go onto these apps and apply to these deals and then post on your social media. I mean, I think that's an awesome opportunity for sure. And I think there's a lot of pros, like a lot of positives to the new world of sports. And then when it's not handled well, there's some negatives that come along with it too.
Wait, how do I get on one of those apps where I can just like post something and get a couple extra $100, Kennedy? How do I make that happen?
I'll send you over some good apps.
All right, perfect. Everyone listening right now is like, wait, is that a thing? Can I actually do that? That's awesome.
Yeah, it's quite the thing.
All right, women's basketball has had its moments over the last couple of years. There's more interest in the W than there ever was before, and obviously the women's tournament is getting, I think, rightful exposure, and the television broadcasts have gotten better. Everything around women's basketball is improving and changing the way that we were just talking about with college athletics at large. What are your aspirations beyond Utah? Do you hope to play professional basketball?
Yeah, I think more and more as my college career has came closer to an end, the more and more I realize that I'm not ready to let go of basketball for sure. So yeah, I do have some dreams and aspirations of playing pro, see what the WNBA, if there's any opportunity there. And then depending on how that goes, we can check out overseas for sure. So that's definitely a chance. And then I also really want to go to physical therapy school. So just got some big decisions to make here in a few months.
Don't let real life come at you fast, all right? Ride the basketball train as long as you can, because when you have to eventually put it down, you're going to be like, that sucks. So, I mean, we don't know each other, but play overseas. Kennedy, just be an athlete for as long as you could be an athlete, because I promise the real world will be waiting whenever it's time to put the basketball down.
Hey, that's some good advice. I keep hearing that, so you guys might be right for sure.
Take it from the old folks who eventually had to hang it up. Like, the longer you could extend this dream of being an athlete and being in a locker room and playing a sport, you should take every opportunity. And look, you're creating opportunities for yourself because of your play. It's not like it's happening on accident, because of all the hard work and all the play. Very much looking forward to watching you and your team as you wrap up this regular season and certainly heading into tournament time. Hopefully we have you on again around that Big 12 tournament.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's Kennedy McQueen, Utah women's basketball star, and a huge addition for them, back in the lineup, back healthy. And like she said, took a minute to get back into rhythm because she was on a minutes restriction. They were giving her the pitch count, trying to get her actually healthy. The governor chip sort of came off against UCF. She ended up with 17 points. And hopefully the rest of the way she stays healthy. When you've got Maya Torre and Kennedy McQueen and you've got Gianna Neepkins, like, this is a team that has a real chance to make noise in the Big 12 tournament and beyond. So if you have not yet checked out a Utah women's basketball game tomorrow night, 7 o'clock against Colorado, that's a great opportunity at the Huntsman Center for you to do so. Also, they're at home next Tuesday against Oklahoma State, and then they've only got one more after that in the regular season. That'll be March 1st. That's a Saturday against BYU on Senior Day to wrap things up. So you got 3 more opportunities to take in this Utah women's basketball team on the home floor. I would encourage you to take advantage of those opportunities. You can hear the games, of course, right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. Tyson Ewing does a phenomenal job, as does Gavin Peterson and the rest of this squad. They're Utah's best chance to make any kind of noise in the postseason in basketball. Unfortunately, the men are facing this incredible uphill climb. They've got 0 quad 1 wins right now. It's just not going to be a thing. Postseason basketball for the men. Maybe the NIT. All right, got to take a break. We'll be back in 3 minutes. And a reminder to all of you, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, we're welcoming Earth, Wind, and Fire to the Maverick Center June 16th. Tickets are on sale right now. Spence Checketts is going to be giving away a pair of tickets every day this week on the drive. Earth, Wind, and Fire at the Maverick Center. So make sure you stay tuned all day. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, Jeff Schwartz is going to join us to do a little Super Bowl recap, talk about turning the page on the 2024 football season. That's coming in 10 minutes or so. I'm putting another poll question up right now, Zach, because we asked and started the conversation about the Utah season tickets. Utah football season tickets, you can start the renewal process today. They sent out the price list, and there is some sticker shock going on. A lot of the feedback we're getting from people is that, look, it's getting too expensive, I can't renew. Or a lot of folks saying, look, I made the decision not to renew all the way back in, like this person says, all the way back in 2017, and I haven't regretted it since. It is a very particular and specific thing that you're purchasing when you buy season tickets. You're going for the experience. You're going to be part of the community. You're going to create memories. Hopefully you're given an opportunity to take the folks that are closest to you or to attend the games with your brother, your dad, your mom, your daughters, whatever. If you're not going to renew your season tickets, if you're going to save I guess nobody buys a single ticket by itself, right? So minimum, it's going to cost you $950 to have season tickets to Utah football. The cheapest season ticket is $475 for the season, and you're going to buy at least two so you have someone to sit by. So $950 minimum, all the way up to, if you're buying four at $4,600 a piece, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it really is.
Doing the quick math on that, that's like $15,000, right?
Yeah.
So if you're saving anywhere from $950 this year to $15,000 this year, what are you spending that money on? Because that's the question, right? For me, and again, I am miserly, I am cheap, I am no fun for anyone to be around when it comes to financial discussions or financial considerations. I am always the one who's just like, no, buy the cheap thing. No, don't upgrade. No, don't add the warranty. No, stop trying to get money out of my pocket. I'm that guy. With this, because, and it's unfair for me, I'm not judging anybody, by the way. I'm not casting aspersions on whatever decision you want to make. I'm just trying to encourage you and trying to give you my perspective on it, because live sporting events, as great as the game day experience is, live sporting events are like one of the unique rites of passage and unique sort of entertainment experiences that you can still consume easily as an American. And easily is a relative term, because when you're talking about $950 for the season tickets, it doesn't get as easy as it used to be. I get that. But live sporting events are it's a unique experience that we don't have as many opportunities for these unique experiences anymore. We're all so enslaved by our technology and by our phones and constantly, scrolling and doom scrolling and flipping and all that. Like, one of the best things about attending a Utah football game or attending whoever your favorite university, you're going up to Weber State, you're going to Utah State, you're going to SUU, you're going to BYU, whatever. One of the greatest things about it is you get 4 hours where your phone stays in your damn pocket or you leave it in the car. And it's just you're experiencing what's happening in front of you. You're living in the moment of sports. And I defy you to tell me that when you're watching at home, you do the same thing. Yeah. Right? And I get it. You got your own bathroom there. You got your own fridge there. You don't have to wait in line. You don't have to park the car. You don't have to sit in traffic. I understand all the negative sides of going to games, but the positive sides of going to games, I still think outweigh those. Now, as someone who gets a credential and gets to be in the arena and gets to go sit in the press box and gets fed in the press box, I don't have a good perspective on how difficult it is. I understand that. I'm not lecturing anybody here. But what are you spending the money on if you're not buying tickets with it? It's a genuine question. It's not like a shaking my finger at you, because that's a hefty chunk of money. Yeah. Anywhere from $950 to $15,000. That math comes from 4 tickets at $4,600, which is the most expensive season ticket price. 2 tickets at $950, or excuse me, 2 tickets at $475 for $950. Like, even $950 you save this year, you could buy something nice with that.
Yeah, and like
TVs right now are like 100-inch TV right now is like $1,000.
It's cheap.
So, what are you buying without it? Because there's always that calculus always happens in my mind when I am forced to like pay a medical bill. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I could have bought anything with this. I could have got it I could have bought a new punching bag for the basement. I could have bought 10 pairs of gloves. I could have bought 8 pairs of shoes for this stupid medical bill. So what are you buying if you're not buying the season ticket? Because for me, that's where the calculus, that's where the rubber meets the road on making that decision. What am I buying if I save this money? Is it going to be better than going to those games? And I'm not talking about the Cal Poly game. I'm probably not even talking about the Texas Tech game. I'm definitely not talking about the Cincinnati game. Is whatever I buy going to be of more value to me than the experience of attending Arizona State, Colorado, Kansas State? And the other thing you have to weigh into, and my buddy was texting me about this, and this sucks. I wish there was a different way for this policy to exist. If you look at the home slate this year and you're just like, no, those games aren't great. I don't want to buy those games. So you don't renew your season tickets, then your name's gone. You don't get to renew next year.
Yeah, and
you go to the bottom of the list, you put yourself back on the wait list, you go to the bottom of the list, and you probably have to wait until several hundred to 1,000, maybe several thousand people make the same decision you made this year, like, hey, it's not worth it for me, and then you can renew again. And by the way, when you do renew again, they're going to be even more expensive.
Yeah, and it's like, look at the home slate this year, and then we're going to look at the home slate next year. We're going to have BYU at Rice-Eccles next year.
Again, right? And that, for me, I am so sold on that game that would be enough for me probably to renew my season ticket package, and I'd probably try to sell a couple of games off.
Yeah.
But I'd make sure that I was there for the BYU game, and that's enough of a reason for me to have season tickets. Again, I don't get to judge this because I get to go to the games as a media member. So, and our parking situation, now that I'm on the home of the Utes, the parking situation is excellent. When I was working for SiriusXM, I had to park up by the Huntsman.
Oh, really?
And just walk, which is also a pleasant walk.
Yeah, it's a beautiful walk.
It's you get to walk through the center of campus. But in any case, I've renewed the poll question. My first poll question about this was, how much are you willing to spend? And because of the responses I got, I've now changed the poll question for you Utah football season ticket holders. So I only want you to respond if you actually hold season tickets, or if you're thinking about renewing your season tickets or not renewing your season tickets. Just a yes or no. Are you going to renew to see Cal Poly, Texas Tech, Arizona State, Colorado, Cincinnati, and Kansas State? 6 home games this year for anywhere from $950 to $15,000. Are you going to renew or not? Is the increase that happens year over year too much for you? I think the answer for most is no. And I'm getting some texts from like personal friends who are telling me the sticker shock that's happening because, again, you're buying multiple tickets.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, I got to spend $1,500 on 2 seats on row 13. I understand. It's not easy. The sacrifice is it's still worth it for you. Weigh in on the poll. We'll check in with that, with the results after we get in with Jeff Schwartz. We'll check in on the results tomorrow when the poll's been up for 24 hours. At Real OC Sports is how you find me. If you want to weigh in, 877-353-0700. Season tickets for Utah football, you can start renewing them today. It is the best show in town. It is the best thing you can do with 6 Saturdays in the fall, but it is a big ask. I understand all sides of this argument. I want to hear your thought process as a listener to the home of the Utes. Jeff Schwartz to talk some football next on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.
After picking up Mahomes, shotgun snap to Hurts, left tackle block, line drive throw, caught on the 5. A.J. Brown hits the pylon far side. Touchdown, Philadelphia! They are destroying the Chiefs. A 12-yard touchdown run. They cash in on the Mahomes interception. They've done it twice. Now 23-0 Eagles before halftime as they had steamrolled the defending champions in the first half.
That was a Jalen Hurts touchdown pass to A.J. Brown, courtesy of Westwood One. Kevin Harlan, Kurt Warner on the Super Bowl call. Joining us to talk about the Super Bowl, wrapping up the 2024 football season. Jeff Schwartz, regular guest, my friend, former Oregon Duck, longtime veteran of the National Football League, and a man who was in New Orleans making his yearly appearances, shaking hands and kissing babies, and doing the thing you got to do when you're a big-time NFL talent. Jeff, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I am good. 6 days is a lot in New Orleans. I am tired, but, you make it work, Sean. You know how it is.
I don't know how it is. I've never been asked to attend any Super Bowl festivities, but I'm not jealous of you. I don't care that you get to do that and not appreciate it, even though I would appreciate it. So we'll just move on. How many bowls of gumbo did you have?
I ended up with, I think it was 6 or 7. I did not have a lot for the first couple of days because I was busy, and then I just went like on a gumbo spree. My wife came to town, and she went to sleep for like 3 hours. She had a 3-hour nap both days, just living the dream. And I didn't want to nap, so I snuck off and had some gumbo. It was fantastic.
All right. So the game itself, I know a lot of people who don't have rooting interests say, I just want a good game. I want a competitive game. It was not exactly that. It was a blowout in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think most of us predicted it. Your level of surprise at how it played out on a scale of like 1 to 10.
Oh, I think pretty shocking. You study a game for weeks and you think it's going to go a certain way, and then it just doesn't, and you have to then watch the film and figure out why that is, honestly, Sean. And I, when you think about sort of, like you go back to sort of the principles of football, right? Blocking, tackling, and it makes sense. Like, oh yeah, the team with the better blockers and tacklers won the game, and the team, that has more explosive play options, the team that does a couple things well. It makes a ton of sense. It's the Eagles, but I think not in the way we thought. Look, you go back, you take away 2 defensive scores, the Eagles only score the 24 points. But to me, the surprising thing was just the physicality by which they dominated the Chiefs. Like, it was such ended up being such a mismatch on both sides of the ball. I mean, they just physically dominated this game and all over the field at all positions, and made the Chiefs look like an inferior team, which I don't think they are. I mean, I think if they played again, the game would be much closer, but the Eagles just took everything away from them, and it was a good old butt whooping, man. It was an Oregon fan. I've seen these games many times where you're like, yeah, that team's just much better than us, and that's what it looked like on film.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better because that's kind of how I came down on it. Like, they're just better, and they're just pushing them around. But then you zoom out and you say, but in the NFL, that's impossible to do. Everybody in the NFL is a freak of nature. Everybody in the NFL is a monster. So as someone who spent all the time that you did at the NFL level, like, the achievement of being able to do that in the Super Bowl and impose your will physically on a team, especially one as good as the Chiefs, how impressive is that? How impossible is it that the Philadelphia Eagles did that when we've seen the Chiefs find every different way to win games over the last 3 seasons.
Yeah. It's hard to sort of put into words like the failure that the Chiefs had just physically in this game. You'll like this. I'm in the office right now. My daughter walks in. She just gets home from school. Says, "It stinks in here." Close the door and runs away. So,
well, that's your fault, bud.
Certainly, I recreated that thing. It's not supposed to look that way with 2 Super Bowl teams, right, Sean? And I think when early in the game, it wasn't as bad, right? And then when things started going sideways, the Chiefs started pressing a little bit. That's when you saw just a lot of the physical mismatches get basically magnified. And I think that is sort of how it begins, right? It starts fair, then all of a sudden it's like, well, this is a big mismatch, and just continued. And part of it was injuries, right? Joe Tooney is playing left tackle for the Chiefs, who is not a left tackle, and no one's taking advantage of that, and they did. But even other things, like there was a clip that someone shared on social media where, Trey Smith, Eagles, the Chiefs right guard, was going to get paid like $27 million this offseason a year. I mean, he got freaking stoned by Nolan Smith. I mean, it was everywhere. You're right. It's not supposed to happen like this. It really is not. And I credit the Eagles. I mean, they were, even just mentally, they were just more prepared. They had more answers. They looked fresher. I know it's not always fun to play like the, who looks fresher on the field. I mean, it's a Super Bowl, but the Chiefs look like a tired team chasing a championship, and the Eagles look like a team that was hunting for a championship. If that makes sense. And it really made a difference on Sunday. You're right. It is hard to overstate just how bad the beat down was. I mean, even when Oregon lost to Ohio State, it wasn't like a physical thing. You're like, yeah, Jeremiah Smith, pretty good football player. Like guys are wide open. This was just a sort of a domination, man. There's no other way to put it. It was a domination.
Did Jalen Hurts change the conversation around where he stands among NFL quarterbacks with his performance in the Super Bowl?
Absolutely. Because, you can make the case reasonably now that he's outplayed Mahomes in 2 Super Bowls. 2, Sean. And that's obviously pretty hard to do because Mahomes is a fabulous football player. I think a lot of us looked at Hurts and thought more like, if they had to win because of Hurts, that was going to be difficult. And they won because of Hurts, right? They won without Saquon Barkley having 100 yards, which I think, if you told me before the game, 54 yards. That's what he had, right? 54 yards?
57, I think. 2.3 yards a carry.
I would have been like, oh, Chiefs win, like, not a problem. And obviously, that's not what happened. The Eagles won. So, I mean, there's all these things that I think go in Hurts' benefit. The one-on-one balls were mostly caught. His ability to run in critical moments, I think, was very well timed, and he just looked fantastic when those opportunities presented themselves. And he's so calm and so cool and collected, and you got to be impressed with him. It certainly does change, I think, very drastically how we feel about Jalen Hurts moving forward. And it should. He did a fabulous job.
How long until Philadelphia fans want to fire Nick Sirianni again?
Oh, 2 weeks in the regular season. Look, he obviously something happened. I think it's fair to say that he can be immature. Like we saw at times, even this season, especially last season, where he was yelling at fans and making some immature comments to the media. And maybe this year and halfway through the season, I'm sure we'll get the big athletic article about Nick Sirianni. Like he clearly decided to just, I think, emotionally mature a little bit here, Sean, and decide to not do as much offensively, defensively. Let your coordinators, obviously Kellen Moore now, the OC is now in New Orleans, the head coach, and Vic Fangio is a fantastic coach, and let them do their job and stay out of it and be the essentially CEO of the team. and he figured it out. He's one of I don't know if he's how good of a coach he really is. I don't know. He's obviously won a lot of football games, Sean. I mean, like, you can't deny that. He's won a lot of football games as a head coach. And if this was someone that maybe we all related to a little bit more, and he was more like media friendly and whatnot, and he didn't make some silly comments and go for it on fourth down all the time, we might look at him a lot differently.
Jeff Schwartz, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, recapping the Super Bowl, the NFL season. We'll get to turning the page here in football, which is always the unfortunate reality of a Super Bowl being in the books. So, I mean, the Eagles look like they're going to be a problem in the NFC for a few more years because most of their important players, they're under contract and they're going to remain under contract. What do the Chiefs need to do? Because I have no doubt that the Chiefs are going to be a factor continually in the AFC, but what do they need to do this offseason?
I always thought 2025, win or lose this game, Sean, was going to be a reset, rebuild type year for the Chiefs. They mentally and physically went all in on this season being a championship season for them. And I think it's just really hard in the NFL to just sort of always play with the idea that it's Super Bowl or bust. And so even just like mentally, I think this next season is going to be important for them to just maybe mentally not put that pressure on themselves to have to be that team all season. And then personnel-wise, look, Travis Kelce looked old in his last two games. He couldn't get off press coverage. It was not a performance I think he would consider to be, what his caliber has been over the years. But I think also just he is older now. Like, he's an older football player. He's played – I think I looked it up at this around like 200 starts in his career, NFL, regular and postseason. And I've said for a couple of weeks now, I think he's retiring after this game. He looks older. He's playing older. I just don't think he's going to play much longer. Maybe he does a sort of load management type season where it's not a full season and whatnot, but I don't think he comes back. So that changes, obviously, well, the Chiefs' offense is going to be next season. Rashee Rice coming back is hugely important for them, but he will be suspended for some portion of this next season, right? Because he still has to have suspension and face punishment for ended up being like a reckless driving type incident in Texas. So that changes who Mahomes throws it to. Offensive line, they need a left tackle. They drafted Sue Matia. It didn't go well this year, but then again. They never gave it a chance to go well because they had to win now. So once it seemed like it didn't work out early on, they pivoted to sort of win now, though. So obviously, with a full off season, I think Kingsley can be a much better player next season. The right guard, Trey Smith, is probably going to be off to somewhere else because they're not going to pay a guard that much money. So a lot of changes roster-wise. Justin Reed and Nick Bolton on defense, most likely, hitting free agency. So that's what happens. And you have to draft and develop players, which the Chiefs have shown over the years, obviously, to be very capable of doing. So I'm not that concerned. I think they'll figure out, sort of how to build their roster. But it's certainly going to be a different-looking roster next season. And they got to push the ball down the field more. They have to find, ways to generate more explosive plays and not be so dink and dunk.
Did Kellen Moore make the right decision taking this Saints job and leaving the Eagles behind?
Yes, you have to take the jobs when they're available to you, in my opinion. You can't wait years to get a head coaching job. Is it the best job? No, because I don't think Derek Carr is very good, and that roster has to be rebuilt and reloaded. But if you are given the opportunity to be head coach in the National Football League, I don't think you turn it down, Sean. So I think it's the right decision to leave. You just won a Super Bowl, too. Like, what better time than winning a Super Bowl to go be a head coach somewhere else? Like, what more do you need to accomplish? You just won your Super Bowl.
Have you ever had a better day in your life than Cooper DeJean had in the Super Bowl? It was his birthday. He got a pick six, won the Super Bowl, capped off an incredible rookie season. That's like the best day you can have.
Probably not. I don't think I've had – only winning a championship would be maybe that first day, to have a Super DeJean day. But, yeah, rookie, first interception on your birthday, Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, probably hard to have a better day than that, Sean. And that's a great play, too. He sort of fell off. Obviously, Mahomes didn't see him. And just a fantastic play by a really good young player. So, yes, it was a great great day for him.
I saw a graphic. There were so many good graphics that were either in the Super Bowl broadcast or after the Super Bowl broadcast. One of them after the Super Bowl broadcast was Cooper DeJean touchdowns scored on him in his rookie year 0 and touchdowns that he scored in his rookie year 1. I didn't watch every Eagles game this year. Is that an accurate stat that he didn't give up a single touchdown pass this year?
I mean, internet would never lie, but I don't know what that means, but I don't think that's true. I can't imagine that's true, but it's certainly possible. But yeah, I don't know, Sean. I really don't know.
Well, the other one, and I wanted to text you while we were watching the game, but I was like, you know what? Jeff's focused on his gumbo in his game right now. The graphic that they put up, I don't know if you even noticed it, about the Super Bowl I average offensive lineman size and then the Super Bowl 59. That was my favorite thing. I just seeing that in Super Bowl I, guys who weighed 235 pounds were offensive linemen, and in Super Bowl 59, you got to be at least 325 if you're going to be an offensive lineman.
And I think those guys that are 325, 340, man, I mean, they might be better athletes than those 240 pounders.
Oh, I mean, for sure.
Mulata and Lane Johnson, I mean, there are some freak shows out there. So, yeah, those guys, I mean, Lane's a Hall of Famer. Mulata, he's a good football player, not quite there. People throw around these terms so loosely. Like it's like Lane's a Hall of Famer. As of right now, he's the only Hall of Famer of the two of them. Maybe one day Mulata will get there, but Lane's like I don't know, first ballot might be the wrong word, but he's going to certainly be talked about as a first ballot Hall of Famer.
An incredible player, and obviously it worked out for the Philadelphia Eagles to build the way that they did. Is this now going to be the NFL's a copycat league, so is everyone going to try to follow this model where they've got bolster your offensive line and see if you can get a quality running back and have maybe a top 10 to 15 quarterback, but don't try necessarily to pay $60 million to have the number one guy? Is it enough of a copycat league that people are going to try to do this the exact way that the Eagles did?
Well, I don't argue you should always build in your trenches, but they just draft and develop really good football players. I mean, they got Jalen Carter to follow them at 9, whatever it is, right? I mean, Nolan Smith, who really didn't do much his first couple of years, all of a sudden is really good. I mean, they've had these home runs, Sean, and I don't think you could just say we're going to be the Eagles because we've drafted these type of players. Like you certainly maybe can one day, but they've got to develop better than anyone else, and that's hard to replicate just by saying you want to do it.
When you look around the league and the other things that are happening as we turn the page to next football season, which is somewhat depressing, Deebo Samuel is now being given permission to seek a trade by the San Francisco 49ers. Sounds like he wants to be a Denver Bronco. We'll start there. Who's going to have a better year next year, Denver or San Francisco?
Ooh. I mean, the Niners can't be more injured, right? Like, there's just no way.
I don't think so.
They're going to sign Brock Purdy. They're probably better than the Broncos, but Deebo just wants out very clearly. So I don't think it matters like how good someone is or isn't going to be. He just doesn't want to play for San Francisco anymore. He wants to be used differently, right? So I could see that offense needing a guy like Deebo. I don't know. These trades, you never get what you think that you're going to get if you're a team. Like the Niners might have their idea, like we want this type of compensation for Deebo. They're just not going to get it. Like, that's just the way this league works. I don't know where he goes. It's a good question. But I think it's time. Like Myles Garrett, I don't think he's going anywhere as much as the Browns. Since he says he wants to go anywhere. But Deebo's now. This is multiple years now. This wanting out. I think the Niners will find a way for him to get out. I don't know if it's before free agency, after free agency, but I do think that they will accommodate him on that.
But you don't think Myles Garrett ends up anywhere but Cleveland?
I don't, Sean. if the Browns figure out quarterback, they're going to be much better. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really see. I guess if the idea is like we're sort of blowing this thing up because we're going to sink again, then maybe you get rid of Miles Garrett. I don't think they feel that way, you know. And so that for me leads to them keeping Garrett, figuring out quarterback, and then trying to win more football games. That's the way I look at it. I don't really. If you want to blow it up, then obviously get rid of Miles Garrett. But I don't think that they feel that way.
All right, now that football season is over, what is the next sports thing that Jeff Schwartz truly actually looks forward to? Like that, someone who's impossible to get excited actually gets excited for. What's next on your sports calendar?
What is it? Four Seasons hockey, Four Nations hockey. Is that where?
Yeah, that's right. Four Nations hockey. That's your thing now.
Yeah. I mean, the Luka thing excites me. I'm a Lakers fan. That's pretty awesome. Played well last night. So I think probably a little bit of that. I mean, college basketball. Oregon has lost 5 games in a row. We look so bad. That definitely is not exciting me. Pitcher catchers report, I think, or did report today, like some places. So maybe a little excited there for baseball. PFL. That's the final answer. PFL.
Nice, dude.
There you go. I thought you announced you got a 4-city swing for the first round. Or
yeah,
4 days.
We're going. All 4 first events are going to be in Orlando, Florida, which is awesome. We've done events there. It's a great host city for big time events, and traveling in and out is fine as long as you can navigate that horrible airport for a little while. So yeah, looking forward to that. Although it does mean that I don't get a trip to Nashville. That was supposed to be our first event, and I love Nashville, so that's the only downside of that one.
You still have not had me come on your broadcast yet. Remember, you had like NFL players for like a season come on and like talk about PFL. I've not gotten an invite yet. I'm just letting you know.
Well, you have to actually show up though. They would come on and they would sit in like the big like American Idol chair, and then we'd be like, "Hey, Ray Lewis, what'd you think of that performance?" And then he'd like make up some BS about why he liked it or didn't. You would be the best at that because you're so good at like dissecting fights and knowing the techniques and all that. So it'd be awesome to send it to you. Be like, Jeff, what'd you think? And then have you give your assessment.
I'd be down for that. I got some free time. I'm in. You would like this. The groveling for work at the Super Bowl was at an all-time high this year.
Because every sports outlet, every digital network, everyone just fires everyone, and it's just like, oh, we're cutting another 100 jobs. It's like, where's the content coming from that you're going to put on your platforms? It's wild.
Just like on my hands and knees begging for work. It was awesome. So it felt great. Like Meredith, it's like, she's like, you always say that you're looking for full-time radio work. I go, yeah, because I lost my job a year and a half ago. Like, she goes, but you never. I go, Sean, she thinks that we didn't have a show for 5 years every night. It's like, I'm like, I had a show, I lost the show. I'm trying to go full-time again somewhere else. It's like it doesn't even process with her that I worked every night for 5 years
on the same show. Yeah, it's the same thing at my house. It's hilarious, and you just like, all right, we're gonna pretend that wasn't a real job that we did every single day.
It blows my mind. You would appreciate. So there was a Mardi Gras style parade that happened Saturday during the day. New Orleans, lots of fun. Meredith was just being like the most Meredith person of all time. She stood in the front of the crowd for 2 hours. Forrest Gump waved at everybody, got a bazillion beads, like made friends with everyone. We go to these parties and stuff, and she just makes friends with every person. She just contact information with people. Like, she's like, hey, I met Melanie. She's coming to Charlotte next week. I give her my number. I go, we're never going to talk to Melanie, but okay, good for you. I don't want to talk to her soul. She's so into it. Like just being friendly and being out. It's very funny.
Yeah. opposites certainly attract. Last thing before I let you go, there was some feedback that like, oh, it's Chiefs and Eagles again. The NFL is so rigged. I'm not watching this game. And then turns in record viewers. The NFL remains undefeated.
Yep. And
at least on the American sports landscape, 126 million viewers, I think, was the number that I saw. They're just going to keep going this way.
Yeah, I don't see why not. It's a very consistent product. Like we start watching other sports right now. And you mentioned earlier, like the NBA is not a consistent product, Sean. College basketball is not. Now, college basketball is fun for many reasons, but it's not fun because it's consistent. I mean, it's consistently not consistent, right? Like the NFL, the product is what it is, and we know exactly what we're getting on any given Sunday. That goes a long way, right? The schedule's ingrained in our sports consciousness, in our minds. College football, I think, really struggled this year because they, basically the season ended Thanksgiving. Regular season, the change of game wasn't for 2 more months. On January 20th. It's NFL. We know the schedule. We know the rhythm of it. The best players playing their best in the postseason. It's never going to change. I just don't see how this train slows down unless. I mean, I don't even know what scandal would matter. So it doesn't surprise me that it's another year, another record number.
All right, dude. Well, I guess now that the football season's over. We're not friends anymore until draft time.
I mean, we could talk Utah basketball. How are they doing this year?
They have 0 quad 1 wins, Jeff. Why are you trying to rub it in?
Well, Oregon's lost to 4 straight unranked teams, so I mean, join the club.
Right.
We could play each other this year, and someone will make the tournament. But I will tell you, being in the Big Ten, it's so funny, dude. Like Oregon's again like 16-8. They're 5-8 in conference. They didn't lose any non-conference games, and in the Pac-12 would not sniff the tournament. And they're like, yep, like 48% making the tournament. You're like, what? Hey, Oregon stinks. But because they have like 12 quad 1 wins because they play in the Big Ten, it's so silly, dude. We're terrible. We might make the tournament because we play in a conference that's overvalued every year.
Well, congratulations to you because Utah's not going to make the tournament. And the Big 12 it's tough sledding for a school that has fully embraced being a football school now.
Yeah, they play a lot of defense. It's Houston, Iowa State, and Arizona's actually played much better this year than I thought they would. So, all right, buddy, I'll talk to you next week. If you want me on, I'll be here. Let me know.
Of course, we'll just find something to talk about. We're still gonna call you. Okay. Thanks, dude. All right.
Sounds good, buddy. Bye.
Jeff Schwartz, longtime NFL veteran, betting expert. And former Kansas City Chief, actually. Played for Andy Reid in Kansas City before the whole dynasty thing happened. He was there when Alex Smith was there. And, as surprised as the rest of us about how that Super Bowl game played out. I just mentioned the ratings, the television ratings for the Super Bowl. It is an absolute juggernaut, a huge economic machine. We'll talk about that and how the NFL influences everything else that happens in television and in sport with its big money, big numbers. Sean O'Connell Show continues on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. So the NFL has set this insanely high bar in the United States for revenue generation and television contract numbers, and everybody is trying to attain that audience. The Super Bowl is a great evidence of this, right? They build up through this entire season. You have all this conversation, all of this speculation and conspiracy that, oh, it's rigged in favor of the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not going to watch the NFL anymore. And then they turn in $126 million, not dollar, 126 million television set rating. 126 million people tuned in for the Super Bowl. And obviously that's 126 million views. That's not an accurate number. That is not even a total number. More than 126 million people in the United States watch the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
Worldwide, now that you have they showed actually on the Super Bowl, they showed the watch parties that are going on in different countries, and that's obviously more of a niche experience. People go to the bars and things like that are the NFL bar, and the expats do their thing. But like the domestic audience, I don't know. I know that there are people who don't watch the Super Bowl, but I don't know anybody who's not like even aware of the fact that it is Super Bowl Sunday, that the sales are going on, that food is being prepared, that they've created a holiday. The NFL has created a national holiday. Super Bowl Sunday is something that is observed either in a dedicated fashion or casually by more than that 126 million viewers. That number is not even real. That's a low bar. That's like the bottom end, and that's what everyone else is trying to chase. Until you start comparing it to the worldwide sports scene, and then you realize that the Super Bowl and the NFL, as massive as it is, like I decided with that was a top 10 sports viewing rating ever. The highest rated Super Bowl, 126 million viewers estimated for the 2025 Super Bowl between Kansas City and Philadelphia. Jake Paul and Mike Tyson happened not so long ago, back in 2024, 65 million viewers tuned in for that on Netflix. And then you go to these international events. I don't even believe this one. All right. South Africa versus England in the 2019 Rugby World Cup final reported an 857 million person audience.
Wow.
Almost 1 billion people on rugby. I don't believe that even. As I love watching rugby. I love watching the Rugby World Cup. I made a point to finally attend my first Rugby World Cup game in person when I had an opportunity to go to France last year. But I guess it was 2 years ago now. But the Rugby World Cup final at almost 1 billion viewers? Now, first of all, England and South Africa, those two countries, while powerful and certainly rugby powerhouses, they don't have the population to support 857 million viewers. That's 3 times the population of the United States tuning in to watch one rugby game. I almost don't believe that one.
Yeah, I don't believe that one either.
Muhammad Ali versus Leon Spinks in 1978. It reported 2 billion people watched that. Now, that's a different deal. I actually believe that because when you're talking about 1978 and a worldwide event that had that level of awareness, there's no competition. There's nobody who's streaming Netflix instead in 1978, right? Muhammad Ali was one of the most famous and polarizing figures in the world. So that's a boxing event that reportedly drew 2 billion viewers back in 1978. And I think in 1978, the global population was like 5 billion people back then. Like, that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
The rest of them are not fair numbers to compare the Super Bowl rating to, the Super Bowl number to, because they're not individual days. It's like the Tour de France in 2024, 3.5 billion viewers. Well, the Tour de France is a several-week operation. The Beijing Olympics, 4.7 billion viewers. Again, that's a couple weeks. The 2022 World Cup, Soccer World Cup in Qatar, or Qatar, however you like to pronounce it. 5.4 billion people viewed at least some of that World Cup. Yes, this particular list doesn't do a good job of separating out the individual day events and the, like every World Cup wins. if you go from the 2022 most viewed World Cup, the next 9 events are also going to be soccer World Cups. If we're allowing World Cup to, I need to know the World Cup final.
Yeah, that's
records.
that's what I was about to ask. Like the most recent one was France and Argentina. That's when Messi won his first World Cup. So I'm curious where that's at too. And it's like, and speaking of that graphic, like the Super Bowl 1 graphic of nations watching was just one, which was the U.S. Right, and then now it's like 120 something, which is crazy. Which
according to FIFA, 1.5 billion people watched the 2022 World Cup final live on television.
Wow,
that's like that's an insane number. This is an actual official FIFA report. 1.12 billion people watched in 2018 and nearly 1.5 billion in 2022. You go back to but this one 2022, according to FIFA, the average live viewing audience was 500 million people. In any case, from an American landscape standpoint, the Super Bowl is obviously dominant. 126 million is a record number in 2025. The Super Bowl between the Chiefs and Eagles, and that's after several years of people saying, I'm not watching the NFL anymore because of this. I'm not watching the NFL anymore because of that. I'm not watching the NFL anymore because of the referees. I'm not watching the NFL anymore because they've softened the game and they've taken away the big hits and they've made the rules favor the quarterback so much. I'm not watching the NFL anymore. There's so many people who tell you the reasons they're not watching the NFL anymore, and yet the Super Bowl, probably from now until the end of time, is just going to be the highest rated American sports event in history. It's just going to keep beating itself, for the record, because it's more and more accessible. There's more and more ways to view it. Goodness gracious. All right, we're going to wrap up the show in our next segment. I'm going to give you some results on the poll question, the modified poll question that I put out there. For all the Utah season ticket holders, are you renewing your season ticket package this year? Yes or no? Tickets ranging anywhere from $475 per seat to $4,600 per seat for a season ticket. Are you renewing, yes or no? I'll give you the results, the early results on that. We got 23 more hours to go before the poll is officially done. And we'll give you some we're going to give away some tickets as well. Hardy is coming on May 29th to the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. I have 2 tickets to give away next. Sean O'Connell Show wrapping up in 3 minutes on ESPN 700. Sean O'Connell Show here. 2 tickets to Hardy on May 29th at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Pre-sale Thursday at 10 a.m. You can win today, though. 877-353-0700 if you know the answer to this question. Luka Doncic made his Lakers debut against the Utah Jazz last night. How many points did he score against the Jazz? The Jazz held him way below his career averages against Utah. Well done, Utah Jazz. Well done, Jazz. Showing Luka who's boss. 877-353-0700. For the correct answer, 2 tickets to Hardy May 29th. Crosstalk coming now, brought to you by Advanced Window Products. If you need new windows, if you're thinking about new windows, make sure you buy direct from a local manufacturer, the best one, Advanced Window Products. Sales, installation, all of it is done in-house with no middleman markups. $2,500 off, 10 windows or more at advancedwindows.com. 801-850-9100 if you'd rather call them. Spence Checketts graces us with his presence. He is back. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Are you one of the bros that gets depressed this week after football is no longer part of our lives?
I'm actually okay.
Okay,
because
good.
Although I don't love turning the page on football season, we have PFLs coming, so I'm going to be back on the road calling some fights. We've got NCAA tournament coming up quick, at least for the women. There's a lot of things that keep my interest. The pre-draft process is right around the corner, so football takes a week off, and then we immediately get back into contract discussions and everything else.
Yeah, if that, right? Like Kellen Moore gets a job today, and, the front page of ESPN.com, the highest downloaded articles are already outlooks for next year.
Yeah.
135.5 million people watched the Super Bowl at its peak in the second quarter, and the game wasn't even close. I mean, imagine what that number would have been if the game was close and went to overtime. Probably would have peaked at about 140, 145. That's a massive number. It is a record-breaking number.
And it's not even the real number because it's more people are actually gathered around television sets watching and streaming and doing all that stuff.
Yeah, the streaming number, was it Tubi who had the streaming, I guess? 14.7 mil or whatever. I don't know who this company is.
Nobody even knows, Tubi's.
Yeah.
You probably hadn't heard of Tubi before yesterday.
Right.
So
no, It's pretty wild. What'd you do for the game since I've been able to catch up with you?
Yeah, we had my wife decided we were throwing a Valentine's themed tea party for 3 to 5 year olds on Saturday, and then also wanted to host the Super Bowl on Sunday. So my wife was in full hostess with the mostess mode this past weekend, and we had about a dozen folks over on Sunday to watch the game, so it was cool.
I forgot about the weekend you had in front of you after I left you on Thursday. How'd you hold up? Everything go okay?
I got to tell you this. I am the curmudgeon when it comes to there's Amazon package after Amazon package after Amazon package.
And that's a copious amount of 3 to 5 year olds in your home, Sean.
It's too many. And I'm just like, why do we need a strawberry-shaped teapot in addition to the heart-shaped teapot, in addition to the rainbow teapot? Why do we need so many of them? And she's like, it's fun. Knock it off.
We're having fun.
And, of course, I'm looking at it, and I'm just going how much money is being spent on this party?
Yeah.
And then she's like, we're going to move the dining table. We're going to get the dining table out of the dining room. We're going to put a miniature dining table, a long one in. And I'm just like, what are you doing? I was just being a complete you-know-what about the whole situation.
Sure, yeah.
And then I did my husbandly duties, and I helped move everything out, and I helped her set up the tables, and we miniaturized the dining room, and then she just knocked it out of the park with all the decorations, and watching my daughters and watching all their cute little friends come in and just go bananas over this setup that was very clearly their size and only for them. It just melted me, and I was
good.
I'm like, why am I such a jerk about these things?
Well, the process oftentimes is not all that exciting. I mean, look, I only have a child, and every time my child would have a birthday or what have you, it's like, okay, you got to do the things, you got to do this, you got to run the errands, and then like you're looking at 3 seats, and you're like, I'm blowing the budget out, and then you see how happy they are when you've gone out of your way to make something special for them, and it makes it all worth it.
Yeah, it was wonderful, and I didn't have to do hardly anything, and she handled it. And then Super Bowl, even though it wasn't a tight game, I talked about this a lot yesterday, it was so fascinating for me to watch that thing unfold the way it unfolded.
Tell me why.
Well, because I thought the Chiefs were going to account much better for themselves than that. I wanted to see if it were possible for Jalen Hurts to change the conversation around himself. I think he definitively did that. I don't care as much if Nick Sirianni did that,
Mhm.
but for Jalen Hurts specifically, I was just like, can this guy outplay Patrick Mahomes? And he did. And then another thing that emerged in the game that I didn't expect to, it's very rare, Spence, to see NFL teams physically mismatched with other NFL teams.
Yeah, good point, yeah.
It's very rare to see an NFL team that smashes another NFL team for 4 quarters.
Yeah.
And that's what the Eagles did. Like, the Chiefs were getting knocked back on the lines of scrimmage.
Both sides.
Both sides.
Yeah.
And it was just like, that's a rare thing because everyone in the NFL is capable of knocking anyone else in the world back. So usually it's a stalemate for the most part.
Yeah. When did you feel – because it felt like it was over pretty quick. But
I thought Cooper DeJean's pick 6 was like, they're going to have a hard time coming back from this. But because they were the Chiefs,
yeah,
at halftime, I was like, you know what, 24-0. This could be a 28-3 comeback situation. I wouldn't be surprised. And then the Chiefs came out and the Eagles came out, and immediately that first series after halftime, I was like, okay, this game is definitely over. But I still watched every minute of it because it's the Super Bowl. It is America's favorite de facto holiday, and it was awesome.
Ultimately I was stunned because I thought, like you, I thought 15 always has an answer. Andy's going to adjust, and they're going to come back in the second half. And when it was 24-0 at half, I don't think I ever got to the point where I thought they'd come back and win it, but I thought Philly would be sweating it out in the end. And, he found Xavier Worthy for that touchdown pass in the end. Crazy thing about that, there was this piece that was written about the money that was wagered on that game. And if you played a daily fantasy, like in a FanDuel or a DraftKings setting, and you were part of like their $1 million game with like 250,000 other people, the Xavier Worthy captain owners prior to that throw, the guys that actually won it, their daily fantasy lineup was worth about $2,000, and then that throw bumped them up to about $178,000. One play.
Wow. When
the game is out of hand. And it's wild, Sean. Like, and I've talked to you about this. 137.5 million people watching the Super Bowl at its peak. Why has the NFL been able to capture so many minds and imaginations? Well, it's only going to continue to grow because I was watching the game with my family and my siblings and their children, and we did the Super Bowl square game, right? And we gave away gummy worms and a pack of Uno, things like that for the winner. But my 9-year-old nephew comes up to me. He's like, hey, let me know if the Chiefs score, but they miss the extra point because I'm going to get my gummy worms. And he's 9. He's 9. And we're already teaching them to watch this game through that prism. You know what I mean? 9 years old. Let me know if the Chiefs score and then they miss the extra point because then I'm winning gummy worms. I'm like, dude, this is just somehow football has been able to capture that element of just simply society far greater than any other sport, and that's one of the reasons why so many people tune in. To your point, not just at the start. Like, if I'm watching an NBA game, unless it's the Jazz or a storyline that I'm interested in, and OKC goes up 25 on Minnesota, I'm like, I'm walking the dog. This is dumb. I'm not watching. Yeah. I didn't turn the TV off until after the post-game celebration and watched every play, every moment down to the wire. And I think most people did, because even if the game's out of hand, chances are you still have something to watch for. It's really interesting. I think it makes the NFL very unique.
It's awesome, and they are undefeated on the American sports landscape and will continue to be, to the point that you just made. And that 9-year-old will eventually be wagering the mortgage payment for the month.
It's a slippery slope, man. Gummy worms when you're 9 and suddenly your mortgage when you're 32. You got to be careful.
Good to have you back.
Good to see you, Sean.
Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. I'm sure he will have lots to say about the Kendrick Lamar halftime show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Proud partner.